What's going on, everybody? Welcome to LTMB Live. This is Let the Madness Begin. It's, Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday, June 18th. Happy everybody's with us tonight. Good to see you out there. We're broadcasting live on YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope Live. It's been a minute. It's been about, It's been 5 days since our last broadcast. So, of course, there's a lot to talk about, and we will get to that shortly. How you doing tonight, man?
Man, I'm doing good.
Doing good, man?
I'm really doing good, man. I'm doing better than one particular individual.
One?
Well, I mean, I'm not. Well, I'm probably doing a lot better than more than one particular individual. But considering this one individual made the news just recently, I'd like to extend my condolences to a young man named Kyle. Yes, Kyle Kusoff, or something like that.
I forgot.
Yeah, man, true patriot. He has endured a tremendous amount of Kushov. He's endured a tremendous amount of, I guess, stress due to unfairness and being severely oppressed. So, I mean, I just want to pour out some proverbial liquor for him. You know what I'm saying?
That's what you want to do?
Yeah, as like, I don't know, man, as a token of my empathy for his situation. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a sad situation when someone is prevented from being let into Harvard because of being racist.
Yeah,
that's an American tragedy. Man.
I feel him though. You know, not to be able to go to your preferred destination of higher learning,
Ivy League destination.
Yes, an Ivy League destination, just because on some silly stuff that you did in the past. You know, just a couple years ago, just some silly stuff.
Minor
didn't mean anything.
Minor character flaws.
No,
minor character flaws.
And he, you know, his future is going to be impacted because of that. It's almost as if like what you do in high school carry some type of weight.
It's almost like what you
about do, on whether these colleges are going to admit you or not.
It's almost like universities and college look at what you did in high school to determine whether they admit you or not. Yeah. It's almost as if
many different things, like not just grades, but like you said,
character.
like character, just achievement, different stops along the way in the community, But it doesn't. It's not just positive. It's also negative attributes as well. Like they look at.
And they kind of look at how you engage with the world, not just to determine your character, but maybe your family life as well.
True.
Because that's what I think a lot of people are. I'm not saying a lot of people are talking about it in those terms, but I haven't seen it. Yeah. Like, I'm not going to sit up here and say that Harvard is just taking the moral high ground here. Actually, Harvard, what they're doing is they are trying to avoid maybe some liability in the future.
This is protect your own ass.
So this is not even about Harvard taking the moral high ground, because what if they found this stuff, right? Well, they did find it. And then he graduates from Harvard, and then maybe he becomes like some sort of Kavanaugh type joker. Or he becomes some sort of CEO, or he enters politics or whatever, and his life is put under the microscope because of some incident, maybe a racist incident. And then it can be like, oh, this is a Harvard graduate. Do you see what I'm saying?
And it's not like information that wasn't known at the time either, because of course there's information that isn't publicized at the time, and it will still lead back to I guess the organization that housed that individual.
Exactly. So
they will receive some type of negative pushback or some feedback about it. But this is we know it now. So again, this is Harvard doing the thing, because if they do let him in, like you were saying, this reflects poorly on their decision making, and they don't want that.
They don't want that. So it's not about some more moral high ground. It's about liability, which I can definitely.
The bottom line, right? They're talking about they're concerned about their bottom line.
They're concerned about their bottom line,
and I think he might impact
their
bottom line.
Yeah, and their reputation.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, and like, Yeah, I think we all make mistakes at age 15 and 16, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But this points to something else. This is not just some sort of one-off.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because this most likely points to his upbringing.
Yeah.
And so you can say, oh, well, he may have adjusted his perspective.
Yeah.
And that's most likely not true because he's definitely not in control of his environment. And that's most likely what, I guess, shaped his perspective on the world. I'm not saying it's exactly the same, but where are the chances it isn't? And it's probably not the same because he's from the same school as
Marjorie
Stoneman Douglas. He was one of the survivors, but see, he is on the other side of the conversation. He went out of his way to shit on David Hogg and what's it, Emma was it Gonzalez?
I think it was Gonzalez.
Yeah, both shit on them. I think Kanye tweeted out something like, "You're my hero" to Emma Gonzalez or something.
Yeah.
And then you know who responded?
Him.
And he says, "Boo."
Yeah.
Or something.
Well, it was not
or
just
no.
a boo. It was a boo.
Boo. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was an antagonist and all that.
Yeah.
So what are the chances he actually did kind of adjust his perspective on life?
It's not like, he, stole a doll at 4 years old or something.
Oh, you mean like
if he stole a doll at 4 years old,
and then the Super Troopers came in,
yeah, and Super Troopers
like they
came
robbed
in,
the bank,
yeah. But then later on in life, this 4-year-old child is gonna apply to Harvard, and then Harvard's gonna use that against them. That would be doing too much. We would be like, nah, Harvard, you're going way across the line here. That 4-year-old child is a 4-year-old child.
Interesting enough, because I brought up him being an antagonist to David Hogg and Emma Gonzalez because they were pushing for some sort of gun control measures, like minor reforms like background checks. Guess who came to Kyle's defense? Just so happens the spokesperson for the NRA tweeted about the situation.
Man, that's really surprising. Yeah. That's really, really surprising.
Basically making him this blameless little child. And it's unfortunate that people used his past, which was not that far back, to make judgments about him. It's just not his fault. This is the same woman that blamed Tamir Rice, 12-year-old for carrying a cap gun, blamed him for his own death.
Didn't she also blame Philando
Castile?
Yeah.
For something he was doing, I guess, in his past, like he had a drug charge.
Yeah.
It's weird how people react to things, isn't it, man?
It really is. It's really
Kyle
hypocritical.
Kushoff. I wonder if his middle name starts with a K.
Nah, he going to.
Just playing.
Well, actually, that's not going too far. If you actually look at what he said in high school, that's actually not going too far. It's just, But anyway, all right. So we were thinking that we might have some audio issues at the beginning. So let us know if you can hear us well. Like if it's a strain to listen to us, then just let us know. We'll try to bump up the volume a little bit. We're not sure if it's low or not. So just let us know real quick in the chat section, and then we'll be on our way to what we have to talk about. Okay, Zach said it sounds good. Sounds fine here. All right. Okay. Yeah. All right. So let's get to it. All right. The Democratic debate lineup has been solidified, okay? On Friday, there was a lottery. And before that, it would already been, well, I can't say whittled down because it's 20 candidates, but I guess there were 24. There still are 24, I guess.
They chipped away
a little bit. Yeah. So 4 of those candidates won't be on the debate stage, on the first set of debates, but 20 of them will. So the Democratic Party wanted to do this in a fair process. And actually what they wanted to avoid was a situation that we had with the Republican Party in 2016, in which those debates, I guess at the end of 2015, really, end of 2015 going into 2016, the debates were on 2 different nights. Well, no, there were 2 different debates, And one was always kind of considered like the JV debate, and the other one being the varsity debate.
It's not fair.
No.
It's not fair to the candidates, especially if you get placed on the junior varsity debate.
Right. That junior varsity debate that was comprised of the lower performing candidates that were not polling as well as your Trump and Jeb Bush, Rubio, stuff like that. So the Democratic Party wanted to avoid a situation like that, so they went about instituting a lottery. So the lottery took place on Friday. I believe it was Friday morning. It was in New York. So here are the results. So on the first night of the debate, which is going to be June 26th, taking place in Miami, I believe. Night one, it's going to be Senator Elizabeth Warren, Beto O'Rourke, Senator Cory Booker, Julian Castro, Representative Tulsi Gabbard, Governor Jay Inslee, Senator Amy Klobuchar, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, John Delaney, and Tim Ryan, Representative Tim Ryan. Then on night two, June 27th, it's going to be Joe Biden, Senator Bernie Sanders, Pete Buttigieg, who is the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, Senator Kamala Harris, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, Senator Michael Bennett, Marianne Williamson, Eric Swalwell, Representative Eric Swalwell, Andrew Yang, and John Hickenlooper. I've read those. I remember I read those names before on the last show. That takes a lot, man.
Yeah,
to read 20 names.
It does. It does take a lot to read 20 names, and I think that took about 25% of the show up.
Yeah, exactly. But when you look at this this visual right here, when you just see the names and how they are separated, I'll just ask you, what do you take away from this?
Notice how both Yang and Williamson are in the same field.
Right.
That's, you know what I'm saying? Those are the only two that don't have actual experience in government.
Right.
Officially.
Official, yeah. That's
You
true.
would think that they would separate those two.
That's true.
Because they were trying to create a situation where the debates were balanced.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Does this seem balanced to you?
No, it doesn't. Especially the one with Bernie, Buttigieg, Biden,
Harris.
and Kamala Harris.
Right.
That seems like kind of a heavy.
That's heavy loaded on one side.
Then they say it seemed like Warren came out really well in this.
Yeah. I guess you can look at it two ways, really.
Or Biden came out well because he's not paired with Warren.
Well, okay, but think about it this way. Okay, so
Say paired, but you know.
Yeah, but so definitely on the first night, Elizabeth Warren is going to be the draw because Elizabeth Warren is looked at as the strongest candidate of those 10. She's the strongest candidate, and that's not based on what I think. It's just that's the way she is viewed as the strongest candidate. So while it may, you could argue that benefits her because there's nobody really to challenge her in that debate, you can also say that there's not going to be as many eyes on that debate as well.
Wait. What you mean? Somebody to challenge her? You mean somebody that's considered more progressive than her?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that where you were kind of going?
I mean,
because
I'm just talking about
in general.
In general, and just the way that it's viewed. Like I said, she is viewed, and a lot of people view her as the most progressive in the race.
No. There is a lot of, I guess, Warren stands out there.
Yeah.
Who I've seen this. They think that somehow Warren is way more progressive than Bernie Sanders.
Right.
They say, she has way more plans. She has plans for everything, and Bernie Sanders
plans
doesn't.
for everything. Yeah, exactly. Now there is in that first debate with her, there is, Tulsi Gabbard, who is definitely looked at as progressive as well. And we'll see if, because those are going to be the two that, if there's a progressive label to put on somebody and that on that first night, those are the two that you would ascribe that label to. So
it seemed like
going to be interesting.
Objectively, it seemed like people would, if they were objective, they would kind of place that label on Gabbard way before Warren, though.
Yeah, but whatever.
That term is been so loosely used
it's
now.
been co-opted and whatever. But anyway, so on night 2 though, I do think it's interesting that it is going to be Bernie Sanders on the same stage as Joe Biden, Kamala Harris as well, Gillibrand, Marianne Williamson, Andrew Yang. Now you have more on this second night that you can ascribe that label of progressivism to.
Williamson.
So, yeah, Williamson, Bernie Sanders.
There's I have my disagreements.
Yang.
I'm about to say, Yang. I have my disagreements with Yang. I think he's a bit like, I don't want to say he's disingenuous, but I think he is, he has his own ulterior motives as far as why he wants to implement certain policy proposals. He's a capitalist in nature. So I'm still on the fence with Yang, but yeah, I still consider him more progressive than most of the Democratic field.
So it's look, that second night, like I said, that's definitely going to be the draw, and I don't think there is any wonder to how it's going to go. I think the target is going to be Joe Biden, and not just for your progressive types like Andrew Yang and Mary Williamson and Bernie Sanders, but for the other candidates as well, Kamala Harris, Kirsten Gillibrand.
What do you mean by target? They're going to you think they're going to look to kind of challenge Biden?
I do.
Or they're going to try to kind of I guess make it a point to match themselves up against him, like head to head?
I really do.
Okay.
Because think about it, especially for the lower tier candidates. Like I said, just in the view, in the perception of the media and like in polling as well, Gillibrand is not somebody that's viewed as a strong candidate. Kamala Harris, she's one of those upper echelon candidates, but still, she's in polling at least, she's trailing, the top third, or not the top third, but I guess like the top 3. I really mean to say. So we don't know. I don't think they know like how far this ride is going to go and if they're going to be on the same stage as Biden again. We don't know when their campaigns are going to end. So this is their opportunity to really showcase themselves and present a different narrative as to what Biden is.
Okay, so since Biden is the front runner,
right,
this will be their opportunity to.
It is their opportunity.
Kind of show the American people how they stack up against the front
Especially
runner.
somebody like Gillibrand. Kamala Harris, maybe she, her, I guess the end point of her campaign, I think you would probably put that as farther away than somebody like Gillibrand. But still, I think this is an opportunity to, I guess, really differentiate themselves with somebody like Biden, who is viewed as the strongest candidate by the media.
You brought up polling. Wouldn't that have been a better metric to use to decide how these debates would be formatted? Rather than a lottery system, because what were they trying to prevent?
Yeah, like I said, they were trying to not have a situation like in 2016 with the Republican Party and that whole JV and varsity type of debate system.
If you're trying to prevent a situation like that, you would kind of, I don't know, you would think that they would take more control over the debate format. You see what I'm saying? Or they would have a hands-on approach and not leave it to chance. Yeah. Why not just use polling data and how they're polling and then divide it up based on that? That would seem like the easiest thing to do. Mm-hmm. I think you can objectively do that just by looking at polling data.
I think that would have been the best thing to do. I think in some regard they want to appear, coming out of 2016, they really want to appear like this is a very fair process, because in 2016, that was not the perception whatsoever. So they're doing way too much to appear fair, neutral, balanced, or whatever.
Yeah,
this step
but if you're going to appear fair, it would it seems like you would go about that by taking a hands-on approach to display that fairness, like do something in a way that people could see. Well, people could see that it makes sense. Mm-hmm. That would make sense. Oh, these people are polling in this way, right? So we'll divide it based on that. That's the metric.
I guess if their hands are on it, and like I said, I do believe their hands should have been on it rather than this whole lottery process. But if their hands are on it, it can always be claimed that they're doing somebody a favor, that they're doing somebody like Biden a favor, Kamala Harris a favor. So, like I said, they're doing too much to really separate themselves from like that kind of claim, I guess. So, I mean, it makes sense, but like I said, there was a better process here that they just didn't use. So, anyway, I do say that like since the debates, actually not since, but I've taken a look at some analysis since the lineup has been solidified. And just listening to, several shows on MSNBC or CNN, I guess the commentators that they have on there talking about it, I hate the way they talk about it, man.
Particularly, what do you have in your mind?
What perturbs me is that the feeling that you get if you really take a step back, and maybe you don't even have to take a step back, maybe this is just like a brick in the face, but they really view this as like a game, as like a sporting event. Like, oh, I can't wait to see him square off with this person, and how are they going to mix it up, and that's the feeling that they really project. And I'm sitting there like, look, I get it that we've been people that have supported Bernie Sanders, Marianne Williamson, other people as well. But I think I'm very interested in what Bernie Sanders is going to say on that stage. Marianne Williamson, I do find myself interested, and I definitely want to watch. I want to listen to the exchange, and how they position themselves versus how somebody like Kamala Harris or Joe Biden positions themselves. But it seems as though they're just in it for the sporting event.
Oh, you're not going to be like, I'm going to get my popcorn and soda.
No. Because, see, this is so far from a game. This is not a game. This is actual, like, life. Like, who is the next president will shape policy. You know what I'm saying? They will shape the lives of actual humans in this country. Not even in just this country, globally.
Do you think that I guess that type of approach is kind of driven by show producers because they have to keep people watching the show?
Yeah.
Do you think that's like natural? Do you think that was organic, or do you think that they have some kind of, I don't know, they have some sort of a loose protocol to approach it in that way to keep viewers interested? You see what I'm saying? Because they kind of, that's kind of their aim, to keep people, like, I guess, glued to the TV. And as far as these debates, they don't want to present it as some sort of boring policy talk and provide boring policy analysis.
Right.
They have to treat it, like you said, like a sporting event, like Shaq going up against David Robinson,
right,
or LeBron going up against Curry. They got to do that because that's kind of the nature of the that's the nature of the world we live in.
But see, is it competitive? But is it really, like, does it really have to be that nature? Because it's boring. Like, actually, it's not boring. But I can understand how somebody can frame it as boring, because you're just talking about news, you're talking about policy. It's not about the entertainment, type of culture, right? Mm-hmm. But I remember, and I can go back to the 80s, 90s, and while we were kids, I can still remember things that were happening in the news. I can remember presidential debates. I can remember some of these things. And I don't remember the entertainment culture that we have now being what it is back then. And even going back into history as well, I don't believe it was the same type of thing. So I wish it was still that type of this is boring type stuff. Not that this is like entertainment type stuff. Because when you throw entertainment into it, I don't think people are really that interested in, I guess, the platform that makes its way to the nomination. They're interested in the entertaining politician that makes its way to the nomination.
Oh, so you think that that I guess if you only focus on, or primarily focus on, the entertainment value, that will override or supersede a voter's perception of a policy?
Yeah. And that's why,
and I think that may tie into the conversation about Warren being seen as more progressive.
Right.
Even though she's really not.
Right.
I mean, but if you're talking about kind of the entertainment value of stuff, did you see the little the Democratic DNC tweet about
yes. The Democrats.
The Democrats.
On Twitter.
On Twitter, yeah, Democrats. The big blue D on Twitter.
Right.
The Democrats' official Twitter page.
Well, what was it? Well,
it was some boy bye. You can get a boy bye wallpaper.
Yeah, and Trump was in the background.
Trump was in the background. You
Right.
text so and so. You text boy bye to this number and you can get a little custom wallpaper for your mobile device with the phrase boy bye.
It's cute.
It's very cute.
Very cute.
And we know who that was designed for. Obviously, they they designed that for white suburban moms over 40. Yeah, that's who they were targeting.
I wouldn't have a problem with that if that was not so different than what the Democrats really embody. If that wasn't, if the Democrats were something else, if they actually were something else as a party, as an organization, like to the core, if they were something different and it matched that tweet, where it wouldn't be like, oh, that's irregular.
No,
I would be like, cool, that's fine, yeah.
Out of the Democratic frontrunners, right? Mm-hmm. Out of all the Democratic frontrunners, for president, because that's what it was about. This is what the tweet was about.
Yeah, it was.
Have you ever heard any of them say "boy bye"
or anything like it?
Anything like it? What's next? Yas Queen. What's next?
You know who would be the first?
Text
to try
Yas
it?
Queen to 422.
Who would be the first to try it?
Wait.
Who would be the first to say something like that? I only got one name in my head.
Was a woman, man?
Oh, it was a woman.
Wait. Kamala Harris?
Oh, death. Death.
Yes. Yeah.
No doubt, man. She would try something like that, man. The whole Cardi B. You remember the little video that was shot by a staffer? She definitely would try something.
Conveniently.
Like she probably put the bug in the ear, man.
She gonna do some box braids. she gonna do some box braids and put on a Scully and put a Scully on. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Put a Scully on. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man.
Put some go hoops in. I can see her doing that, man.
Anyway, let's move it on. Last week we talked about the President Trump and George Stephanopoulos interview. At that point, only a portion of the interview had been shown, and that was regarding Trump mentioning several times the Mueller interview. The Mueller investigation in this interview. And Trump actually admitting that he would take information from a foreign government, from a foreign country, on a political opponent.
He backed it up, though. He clarified it, and Mike Pompeo came on TV and reassured us that Trump, was either misquoted or misunderstood. Will?
But yeah, so that happened last week. Also, what happened, I believe that was Friday when he called into Fox News. So we have a clip of that as well. And then we have more of the interview of President Trump and George Stephanopoulos that we're going to get to as well, a couple clips. But let's first show a clip of Trump calling into Fox and Friends. I believe, and like I said, I believe this was on Friday morning, which was his birthday, I believe.
Yeah.
His birthday. This is Trump trying to backtrack, just trying to take a step back and say, hey, it's not as bad as, what they're saying about me. That was fake news. I'm really going to give it to you ruggedy raw right here. This is what I meant. So let's just show the clip.
First of all, I don't think anybody would present me with anything bad because they know how much I love this country. Nobody's going to present me with anything bad. Number two, if I was, and of course you have to look at it, because if you don't look at it, you're not going to know if it's bad. How are you going to know if it's bad? But of course you give it to the FBI or report it to the Attorney General or somebody like that. But of course you do that. You couldn't have that happen with our country, and everybody understands that. And I thought it was made clear. In fact, I actually said at the beginning, I think I said I'd do both. But how are you going to, if you don't hear what it is, you're not going to know what it is. I mean,
That's
how can
right.
you report
how do you
something
know it's
that you
bad
don't
if you don't listen to it?
So, Mr. President,
no, they say, oh, he would accept it. Well, if I don't listen, you're not going to know. Now, if I thought anything was incorrect or badly stated, I'd report it to the Attorney General, the FBI. I'd report it to law enforcement. Absolutely. One thing that's different with the president, I had dinner with the Queen. I met with the Prime Minister of the UK. I was with the head of France. I was with the head of all these nations, and I constantly am talking to them. And, that puts us in a different, we have many, many conversations. And I'm just thinking, gee, if they say, we don't like your opponent, am I supposed to put, the president of France, am I supposed to report him to the FBI? I'm in a little bit of a different position than a lot of other people.
Mr. President, I think that's a good point, but what if that person, if a leader leaned over and just said, listen, this candidate that you're running against, he did some dicey things in XYZ country, and I got some proof of it. What do you do in that scenario? Do you back off? Do you say, I don't need it? Do you say, show it to me?
Like I said, Brian, the President of the United States, no matter who it is, whether it's me or anybody else, is in a much different position. Because I hear things that, frankly, good, bad, or indifferent, that other people don't hear. Just a normal conversation. Right. But nobody is going to say bad things to me. They know that I'm a very straight player. They know one thing about me. I love this country more than anything. I love this country. That's why I'm doing this.
I am not a traitor. I am not a crook. I am not treasonous. Please believe me. I love America. I am trustworthy. Promise. I promise. That's basically what that whole thing was about.
In other words.
In other words.
Yeah. It's again, man. It's every time. Nowadays, every time we do cover Trump, it's getting more and more difficult because he just makes it incredibly difficult to offer analysis, because we're trying to be serious, okay? We joke around. We definitely joke around on this program, but we do try to give you seriousness about the issues as well. And with Trump, it's just so difficult to do that. He goes on this program to say that he doesn't think that he would be even presented information about a political opponent because he loves the country so much. And everybody knows he loves the country so much. Now, I'm trying to understand how this makes any sense. I'm trying to understand this, right? Because the information would be about a political opponent, not about the country, not about, hey, let me just slip you some information about how America is really bad. It's going to be about a political opponent. So by him saying that they wouldn't give it to me because they know how much I love the country, makes zero sense. It doesn't compute. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. How is that your reasoning? How would...
I'll explain. What he is saying is there might be some bad actors out there that are are connected directly or indirectly to a foreign nation, right? Mm-hmm. Trump has presented himself in such a way, right? And he has a history of being straightforward in an honest kind of way. He has displayed so much integrity throughout his life that those bad players that are trying to manipulate him and trying to get him to commit treason, they wouldn't even approach him because they know how much of a patriot he is. They know how much he cares about law and order. That's what he was talking about. He said he wouldn't even be approached because he is so honest. They wouldn't even come to him because, no, we're not going to, try to, give this to him. He can't be bribed. He can't be bought. That's what he is saying because he loves the country so much.
So what we're going to do, we're going to clip this portion of the video, right? We're going to send this to the White House because I don't believe they've made a selection yet on who's going to succeed Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I think this should be your audition tape because you do it way better. You do it way better. That was off the cuff. That
was straight.
My man just did an excellent job here. He says that it wouldn't be, like I said, it wouldn't be given to him because he loves the country. He said that you have to take a look at the information first, though.
Yo. Now that part, I can't even be serious on. That is funny. That's a funny guy.
I gotta look at the information.
Hey, look.
Okay,
hey, look,
this
look.
damaging information about my political opponent.
Before I hand it over to the FBI and lose control over it, I need to see it so I can use it against my opponent whenever the time
But
comes.
I'm going to turn it over.
But I promise I'm going to turn it over.
But I'm still gonna keep it and use it though. I mean, I'm gonna have it.
To me, that's probably him being honest. I don't think he's going to take that back. He thinks that would be the right thing to do, and I'm like, that sounds so Trump. He's like, I'm going to do the right thing, but before I do the right thing, I'm going to see if I can gain something from this situation.
Yes, that's classic Trump. I mean, that's what you would expect of Trump. It's just that now he's offering that, yes, I would give it to the FBI, but in a more, I guess, in a more confirming way, because in that interview with Stephanopoulos, he said maybe.
I got to look and see how bad it is. You see what I'm saying? I got to look and see how bad it is.
If it's incorrect. He said if it's incorrect, then yeah, I turn it over.
If it's incorrect. Oh, Trump is going to vet it first. Trump is gonna vet it. Okay,
man. Like I said, it's so difficult. We can't even approach this in a serious way because it is comical now. So anyway, let's get to more of the Stephanopoulos interview. Stephanopoulos, who's with ABC News, he spent about 3 days at the White House? Is it 2 or 3 days, I believe?
30 hours.
30 hours.
Total.
Yes, 30 hours in total.
30 hours
at the White House. And so this was a lot of time that he spent there. There was a lot of video, a lot of footage. But so there are two clips that we definitely want to address. And the first one, this is about the Mueller investigation and specifically about former White House counsel Don McGahn and his testimony that he gave to Robert Mueller. So let's just roll this clip.
A lot of evidence, including the episode where you ask your White House counsel, Don McGahn, you tell him Mueller has to go. You call him twice and say, Mueller has to go. Call me when it's done.
Okay, now the story on that, very simply. Number one, I was never going to fire Mueller. I never suggested firing Mueller.
That's not what he says.
Excuse, I don't care what he says. It doesn't matter. That was to show everyone what a good counsel he was. Now, he may have gotten it confused with the fact that I've always said, and I said it to you and I said it to anybody that would listen, Robert Mueller was conflicted.
But why would Don
but
McGahn
we had a
lie?
business.
Why would he lie under oath? Why would he lie
because
under
he
oath
wanted to
Robert
make
Mueller?
himself look like a good lawyer, or he believed it because I would constantly tell anybody that would listen, including you, including the media, that Robert Mueller was conflicted. Robert Mueller had a total conflict of interest. I didn't say that. Look, Article 2, I would be allowed to fire Robert Mueller. There was not, assuming I did all of the things I said I want to fire him. Number one, I didn't. He wasn't fired. Okay, number one, very importantly. But more importantly, Article 2 allows me to do whatever I want. Article 2 would have allowed me to fire him.
So it sounds
but
like
I wasn't going to fire. You know why? Because I watched Richard Nixon go around firing everybody, and that didn't work out too well.
I think this dude doesn't realize that he tells on himself. When he talks about Article 2, he's given reason to the only way that you even bring up Article 2 is if you want to prove to somebody that you had every right to do what you did and try to fire Mueller. It would have been within your purview to fire Mueller based on Article 2. Why would you include that in this discussion if you never intended or even tried to get rid of Mueller? It wouldn't be part of the conversation that you would have. Like, he's floundering. This is this like meandering type of response. And then he goes to Article 2 because he doesn't have anywhere else to go. McGahn, in testimony to Mueller, stated Trump ordered him, directed him to fire Mueller.
See, and this is the thing.
But then he says, I don't care what he says. He's lying.
He's trying to play dumb here because, like, based on Trump's history and actually based on how Trump currently operates, Trump doesn't do things by himself. He gets other people to do it for him. Mm-hmm. This is why he was so mad about Sessions and went on a Twitter bitch out tirade over the course of weeks because Sessions did not want to fire Mueller. Not fire Mueller, but
Comey.
Comey, right. Yeah, Comey. But he wasn't going to do it by himself. Now that, I guess, when we're talking about Trump, he knows he couldn't do that. He knew that if he actually did fire Mueller, like firsthand, that would have looked real bad.
Oh yeah.
He wouldn't have gone that far. That was the reason why he was trying to get other people to do it or create this kind of atmosphere that would make Mueller appear conflicted. You see what I'm saying? So he was trying to get Mueller fired. Simply because he did not do it directly does not mean he wasn't trying. And to claim that McGahn was just trying to show
what a good lawyer he was.
How good a lawyer he was.
He said he was trying to show how good of a counsel he was. How does that make sense? Why would McGahn, who I don't know if anybody knows this, but McGahn worked for the White House. And, you know, the White House does include Donald Trump as well. Why would McGahn lie to Mueller, but then heed Trump's advice and refuse to testify in Congress? Because he was called to testify, right? Was this the House Judiciary Committee?
Yes.
And he took the words or the recommendation from the House, if you can call it a recommendation, it's more like an order. But he heeded that advice, order, or whatever, and was like, yeah, I'm not going to testify. And that's only to protect somebody, namely Donald Trump. So if he's doing things to protect Donald Trump, then why would he lie to hurt Donald Trump?
No, yeah, why would he? Yeah, like to show he was a good lawyer for who? Like to who?
Come on,
to
man.
And for who? And actually,
there's
why?
So many holes in
and
this.
Why would a good lawyer, put himself in position, right? Unilaterally. Why would he put himself in position to make himself look like he was, I guess, I don't know, violating the law?
Right.
Helping Trump obstruct. Why would he do that? That's not good lawyering, right?
No, it's horrible. I'm sorry. It doesn't make sense, man. So there's one more clip that we want to show. I just want to get some of these comments. Let me get them to show on
approve some of these comments because it is the YouTube.
Yeah, the filtering mechanism on YouTube.
It's very strict.
Yeah.
Well, you could choose, but
anyway, all right. So the last clip that we want to show from this interview is it's still about the Mueller investigation, but it's about Trump's claim that he was set up from the beginning. All right.
It was a setup, in my opinion, and I think it's going to come out. I hope it's going to come out. We're going to find out very soon because I really believe it's going to come out. When you look at Strzok, these FBI guys that were lowlifes, when you look, because the FBI is the greatest, but the top people were absolute lowlifes. When you look at Strzok and Page, and they're talking about an insurance policy just in case she loses, that was the insurance policy.
I've heard you talk about
I
that
went
before.
through George. I went through the insurance policy.
I understand that, but if they were determined to prevent you from becoming president, why wouldn't they leak it beforehand?
You know what? You'd have to ask them. Oh, they tried. They tried. And you know what? Had that gone out before the election, I don't think I would have had enough time to defend myself.
You clearly believe there was a group of people working against you. Do you think President Obama was behind it?
I would say that he certainly must have known about it because it went very high up in the chain, but you're going to find that out. I'm not going to make that statement quite yet, but I would say that President Obama had to know about it.
See, no, hold on. Before you even go, I know this dude. I know that Trump talking like that in that particular way and about the whole setup and about Obama. I know you can't stand that Trump dog. Because it makes no sense.
You know what? Stephanopoulos, right?
Yeah.
For the most part, like, I think it was a softball interview. It was a complete softball experience. He was way too comfortable. He let Trump off the hook. Now, I don't know. It's probably hard to interview somebody like this anyway. You're never going to get a straight answer.
And there's you can't get in a lot of words too.
Can't get a lot of words. I would say in that moment he actually tried. He actually said, "Well, that doesn't make sense. If the goal was to keep you from the presidency, they would have kind of flooded the media with all this sensitive information."
And even before pushing back on that, he said, like, who set you up? So that was a good question too. Like, hold on. You say you're being set up. Who set you up? Because I mean, you really have to answer or ask that question, because a lot of this always surrounds the idea that the Democratic Party is behind this whole investigation. But as we have said many, many times, we've asked the question, who started the investigation? That would be, the investigation started under President Trump's administration. So that would be Republicans that started the investigation. So how could this be a Democratic ploy? That you would have to say that the Republicans were working for the Democratic Party, which
they were doing the Democratic Party a solid. Like, let's help them out and investigate a fellow Republican. But
we worked extremely hard to get Trump elected, but then we're going to do the work of the Democratic Party to get him out.
The interesting part about, I guess, Trump floating this conspiracy theory, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, I'm surprised he didn't, talk about the dossier more.
Right.
And like, there's this overarching narrative surrounding the dossier, being connected to Hillary Clinton's campaign, the Democratic Party. Uh-huh. But what Trump never will admit is where the dossier got its start.
Yeah, like, how did it begin?
How did it begin?
That's
How did it begin? How did it begin?
Discussed.
Well, how did it begin? How did it begin?
I believe, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I believe this began as Oppo research started by Republicans.
Yes.
I believe Rubio?
Yes.
I believe Rubio was intended on using this information.
Rubio. Yes. And of course, when Trump eventually became the nominee, right. you don't need it anymore.
Don't need it anymore, so you don't pay for it anymore.
So guess who would pick it up? Who would naturally pick it up?
Well, damn it, there was only one other nominee. And the other nominee was in the Democratic Party. Mm. So, it became a Democratic thing at that time.
It became a Democratic.
But it didn't originate.
And they hired an American firm.
Yes.
But
that's never discussed, though. Again, it's always discussed as being, this was started, and it, I guess, ultimately finished with the Democratic Party. The whole operation was Democratic. That's it. This wasn't Republican based whatsoever. That's why it's just exhausting. Listening to that. Oh my gosh, when you bring up Strzok and Page, do you know the silliness of that argument to even mention them? These were two And Lisa Page was not even an agent. She was a lawyer for the FBI.
Yeah.
Struck an agent, cool. They have an affair. They're having private communications. Now, yeah, they're on, I guess, FBI devices, but they're having private communications with each other. And it wasn't just about Trump, which we have noted before. They had disparaging things to say about others like Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. So the whole like secret society and how like they got a backup plan and this and that. Do you have any information to suggest that that was real? Like something tangible that you can actually point to, grab onto. Something else other than like the text messages.
Other than them saying bad things about you. Because if that's it, then you have nothing, considering that Peter Strzok said bad things about Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders too. You see what I'm saying? Doesn't make any sense. And like if I'm an FBI agent or if I'm in law enforcement, right, and my job is to, I guess, collect evidence, review evidence, observe what this suspect is doing, has done, and I say, oh, we got to get this guy. He's an idiot. He's a dummy. Or, God, he's stupid. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's... I don't see anything wrong with talk like that, especially if you're investigating someone who you have seen evidence, or you investigating someone where you have observed evidence that they're involved in some shady shit. Like expressing an opinion about that and about that person doesn't qualify as a conflict of interest. It really doesn't.
No.
Because most FBI agents or most law enforcement I guess, personnel, they have an opinion about the people who they're investigating. That's just a part of it. Now, does that
because they're humans?
Because they're human. Does that constitute as conflict of interest? Or they?
Does it even point to a larger plot, a scheme? Does it point to anything?
I think and that's the point. Like, does it point to a larger plot? And I don't think so. Like every way Trump tries to go with this, it doesn't make any sense and it doesn't hold water. That's what I'm saying. I'm surprised. I think he would have done better by going to like talking about the dossier more, even though we know that's still a bullshit story.
Right.
Considering Christopher Steele is connected to British intelligence, who coordinates with the United States intelligence. Like that's normal shit.
Like I said, man, the whole entire interview with Trump was. I he spent 30 hours there. Of course, he didn't spend 30 hours with Trump, but
that's crazy because like the show was really only an hour long.
Yeah, it was.
And it was only the commercials. It was 35 to 40 minutes of actual show.
So it had to be very condensed.
They condensed it a lot.
Yeah, there was one. I mean, to give you, I guess, some type of inside look into what the man is really like. There was a situation in the Oval Office where Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney had a cough. He had a cough while the interview was taking place, and it looked like Trump was about to lose his shit, man. He made Mulvaney get out because he coughed during the interview. And then there's been some talk too about how like that's a thing with Donald Trump. Like he really like, he loses it if there's like some noise that goes on during the interview, and like he'll just like kick mugs out. Like, he just overdoes it, man.
What's the dude? What's the WWE dude?
McMahon.
McMahon. I heard that about him too, where if you coughed in his presence, well, he views that as weak.
Yeah, exactly. I believe that was.
And so
that was the article.
I do think that's maybe some kind of maybe
sneezing as well.
I think maybe Trump inherited that from him because he's a fan of McMahon. McMahon is a fan of him too.
Right.
I don't even think that's real on Trump's part. I think that's some sort of inherited tough guy shit.
Yeah. Because how could it be real? Sneezing and coughing is a sign of weakness? Like, come on, man.
I'm still trying to figure out like who set Manafort up and who set Flynn up. You see what I'm saying? If you're going to present that as the case, like, oh, all my guys are set up. I was like, who forced a Manafort to lobby for a foreign entity, a country who
forced him to money launder?
Who forced him to money launder? Who forced him to, you know what I'm saying? Who forced him and Gates to set up front businesses?
Yeah.
Who forced them that? Who forced Flynn to accept money to kidnap a Turkish dissident? Who pushed him into that position? I don't get it. Like, how do you set that up?
And there was a bit of lying that was taken. You know, Flynn lied. You know, there was a bunch of lying. I mean, the coup, the plot against Donald Trump, they forced people to lie. Is that what happened? They forced them to lie. Okay. Let me see. Let's because there's a few different things with this administration that we have to cover. Patrick Shanahan, who is the acting Secretary of Defense, withdrew his name from consideration for the official job, for the long-term post. He's not going to go through the confirmation hearings. So in his place, Mark Esper, who is the Secretary of the Army, he was appointed as acting Secretary of Defense by Donald Trump. And this was just Tuesday morning, I believe. So, there's some controversy with Shanahan. Actually, two different situations, both regarding domestic violence. One was, I believe, in 2011 with his son. I believe he was 17 at the time, and attacked his mother with a baseball bat. And it said that it was a brutal attack. I didn't see any pictures or really read too, in depth about it. But like I said, it's said to be a very heinous attack. And what's really disgusting is that Shanahan defended his son and said that it was self-defense. Now, after that fact, he says that he regrets using those words and trying to frame the situation that it was self-defense, and he says now that it was not, it wasn't anything like that. There's no excuse for using a bat to attack somebody. So but that was one situation that was recently I guess revealed in the media, I believe by the Washington Post recently. But then there was another situation as well, and that goes to 2010, just a year prior to that, in which there was a situation with him and his wife, or his former wife. The mother of his children, in which both claimed that the other had punched the other, punched each other, and so
I think it was one of those things where it was a wash.
Yeah.
Because
even though I don't believe she was arrested.
She was arrested.
He was not arrested.
So it was like thought that maybe she was the aggressor.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Because he had, he, per the, I guess, police report, he had, I guess, evidence of being hit in the face. Bloody, like a bruising on his eye, I believe. And she didn't have anything visible. She claimed that she got punched in the stomach. But like I said, they arrested her. The charges were eventually dropped.
You know what's interesting about this situation? That, like, the whole domestic abuse allegations or those domestic abuse situations that have been highlighted kind of have taken over this conversation of why he withdrew his name. I guess because the Secretary of Defense, because he was acting, and he just hadn't been confirmed yet.
Right.
So he was...
Well, he hadn't been put up
to be confirmed. Right. But, like, he was kind of in line to officially take that position.
It was thought. Yeah.
It was thought.
Right.
But, like, I don't think that should be the focus, though. Like, that's great and all. But you know what should be the focus? The fact that he was an executive for Boeing.
Yeah.
That should be more the focus. Like, why he shouldn't have that job. That seems like a conflict of interest to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I mean, like the domestic abuse, all right, that's a subject for another day. But based on what position he would have, I think the most significant part of his life that would pose an issue for me is the fact that he was a former Boeing executive.
Yeah, and we talked about that when he was appointed to this role. We talked about that link with Boeing, defense contractors. But, I can't just say that this is something that is, I guess, just applies to this current administration. Even though when you're talking about the first Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, and his,
ties to
Exxon, that was a conflict of interest, no doubt. Like I said, so this isn't something that bothers the Trump administration, but, like I said, you can go back into other administrations as well, and you see these troubling links too. So that should be the conversation. That's where we have the conversation, but this is, I guess, that is not embarrassing. You know what I'm saying? That's not something that will preclude you.
That's par for the course.
That's par for the course, but domestic violence...
Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird how that is the controversy?
Yeah, it is. It sure is.
Because that really doesn't affect his job, and that's what we should be worried about. Like I said, that's a side conversation.
It is.
That's actually not even a side conversation I even care about having, because that doesn't affect his job.
Right. Yeah, man. All right. Let's go to the Trump tweet. All right. So on Monday, President Trump announced on Twitter that next week the process of removing all undocumented immigrants from the United States will start. All of them. The millions of them that occupy this nation, that are living here, but not legally. He intimated that the process will be started and they're going to remove them. So this is the tweet that he put out there. He said, next week, ICE will begin the process of removing the millions of illegal aliens who have illicitly found their way into the United States. They will be removed as fast as they come in. Mexico, using their strong immigration laws, is doing a very good job of stopping people long before they get to our southern border. Guatemala is getting ready to sign a safe third agreement. The only ones who won't do anything are the Democrats in Congress. They must vote to get rid of the loopholes and fix asylum. If so, border crisis will end quickly.
There's an estimated 10, 11?
You hear 12, you hear all the
9,
way
10, 11, 12.
I hear 18. I mean, we hear all. It's a range. There's really no way to know. There's really no way to know. So I don't know. But we do know it's millions. We do know that.
I'm not sure ICE even has the logistical capability or logistical capacity to remove millions of immigrants, unauthorized immigrants. I don't even think they do.
Because think about, you remember the conversation that we would have many times, actually. And the conversation was about Obama taking your guns, right? And remember, you always wanted to play that situation out. Forget arguing about this.
Yeah, forget arguing about
it. Let's just play it out and see.
That's your theory. Yeah. Let's see, how something like that would
What's
play
the process?
out.
How who's going to come to your door? Who's going to come to your door? How are they going to get your guns from you? Are they going to demand it? Or you're going to be at gunpoint? What is the actual process? What is it going to entail? So if you talk about it in this sense,
they're just going to be rounding people up.
But how are they going to do that, though?
If he's talking about ICE rounding people up, I want to know what takes place before that so they'll know who to round up. Are they just going to be roaming the streets, checking papers?
Are they going to be knocking on doors, demanding to come in?
Yeah, exactly.
Show me your birth certificate. Show me your license.
How is this going to how is this going to happen? Are they just going to go after known illegals? Known people who are unauthorized immigrants? Or do people who are just seeking asylum get kind of swept up in this too? Mm-hmm. It just seems as if this is classic Trump.
Yeah.
I'm going to just point the finger, it's going to happen.
I don't see, like you said, I don't see any logistical way how this is actually going to happen, but that does not stop somebody like President Trump from flexing his muscles, pounding his chest,
He's flexing his muscles. Normally when people flex their muscles or pound their chest, it's because they're trying to draw attention to themselves as a leader.
Yeah.
Didn't he just recently hold a rally kicking off his re-election campaign? Yeah.
He did.
That's what this is about. Whether this is going to be a kind of a legitimate legitimate program that he's about to run to get immigrants out, I don't know. I think it's more of a kind of a campaign bolstering type of effort put on by him and his administration and his campaign. I don't think it could happen, and the logistics behind it are kind of vague or non-existent.
Well, they're non-existent. We don't know what that process would look like. And look, I think not that I think. I've seen people on both sides of the political aisle say how badly of an idea this is. How bad of an idea this is, because when you remove that many people, if they were even if it was possible that they could do it, if you remove that many people from this country, you're going to do something that's going to hamper this country economically, because a lot of these people do participate in the economy. Now, they don't get to enjoy the same benefits as people that are here legally from living here, but they do, put money into this economy. If you take that contribution out of the economy, and I'm talking about
billions.
I'm talking about just as being a consumer, one, and also the work product as well. You're taking away their work as well. When you take that away from the country, are you just going to automatically just replace that work and that money that is being pushed into the economy as consumers? It's bewildering that this was, and that's I guess that's a major point of, is he really gonna do this? Does he really even think that this is possible?
He's just flexing, man. I'm telling you, he's just flexing. He's just flexing. He's got to make it. He has to be in this perpetual state of, I got to show I'm doing something.
I got to show my muscles.
I got to show my muscle. Right. I got to show I'm about that life.
Yeah.
Even if I'm not, even if there's not an actual plan that could take place that could manifest these stated desires. Mm-hmm. He has to present a case that he's doing something and he's handling a problem. And to me, judging from the recent news about us cutting off aid to Guatemala and Honduras and some other countries, judging from that news, it would seem as if that would create a worse situation and kind of push people to leave those countries and come to a country that they have a better opportunity.
Right. So that's the connected story about that recent news. So that was on Monday as well. The State Department announced that those three countries, Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, foreign aid was going to be cut from going to those countries. And so it was State Department spokeswoman Morgan Ortagus who said, "We will not provide new funds for programs in those countries until we are satisfied that the Northern Triangle governments are taking concrete actions to reduce the number of migrants coming to the U.S. border. This is consistent with the president's direction and with the recognition that it is critical that there be sufficient political will in these countries to address the problem at its source." So this is just she said it herself that this is a directive that's consistent with the president's will, President Donald Trump. He wants other countries to do the work for the United States. He wants other countries to block these migrants from coming to the United States. But by cutting the funding, like you just said, by cutting the funding for these countries that people use, that people need in these countries, you're only going to create a situation where they will want to flee even more so because they probably can't stay where they are. So I think you're going to have an unintended consequence and going to have even more of a rush to the United States of America.
But think about that, though. Think about, like, the reasoning that they're using. And I just can't trust it. I can't trust that reasoning.
It's dirty, too. It's mad dirty.
No, think about it. Think about it. We're cutting off aid to Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras, right? Mm-hmm. Because they're not doing a good job keeping, I guess, people from leaving the country to seek a better life. But now, and a lot of that has to do with the United States economic, I guess, economic agreements that they have with those countries.
Right.
A lot of those countries are drained by the United States in these trade deals like NAFTA.
No doubt.
But I do think it's interesting that the United States would treat these countries like that, right? And withhold aid from those countries that are actually struggling, right? But they would give aid to a country they say has been taken over by a dictator. They gave aid to a country that they say is being run by a dictator and is not the rightful president. Isn't that weird to you? Mm-hmm. That just seems weird. That kind of makes me question their, the United States withholding aid from these three countries. Mm-hmm. And it also makes me question why they even gave Maduro aid.
Right.
Doesn't even make sense. Maduro is like seen as according to the United States, according to this administration, not the rightful president.
Not the rightful president.
But right. we're giving him his country aid? It doesn't even make sense. Like, there's no rhyme or reason other than the United States trying to manipulate people that leads me to believe why we withhold aid and why we give aid, because it just doesn't make any sense.
There have been people that have been trying and have successfully left Venezuela, trying to flee for a different life, a better life. And that's the same type of situation.
And again, like, if the aim here is to, like, hold these countries accountable, and that's why the United States and that's why this administration is withholding aid to hold this country accountable, like, why wouldn't we take that approach to Venezuela too? Right. A country that has leadership that we think is illegitimate. Wouldn't giving them aid, you know what I'm saying? If our motives are pure, wouldn't giving them aid, be sending the message that, hey, we're supporting you? Yeah. It would. We're supporting your illegitimate regime? Yeah. We're not holding you accountable?
It wouldn't fall in line with, I guess, what they want to happen.
It wouldn't fall in line with what they want to happen, which leads me to believe that the motives aren't ever pure. They're not ever pure as far as, like, who we provide or who we deny aid to.
Mm-hmm. Again, this is during a time where Donald Trump is aggressively seeking re-election, and we see that. So I guess you really do have to take a lot of the things that you're hearing right now with a grain of salt, even though with this withholding, funds from these three particular countries, it seems as though that is going to go forward. The whole, rounding up all undocumented immigrants, that I don't see that happening. But with these three countries, that's likely to happen unless they can convince the United States that they're going to be blocking people from leaving or blocking people from entering. One more about the administration with Pompeo. All right. Every year there is a list that the U.S. compiles of countries who use child soldiers. So this is due to the Child Soldiers Prevention Act of 2008, and it stipulates that these foreign militaries are forbidden from receiving U.S. aid unless the president issues a waiver. So it seems like a pretty good policy if foreign countries, foreign militaries are using children as soldiers, we don't really want to be in bed with them. We don't want to be funding them. We don't want to be providing aid to them. Seems like a pretty good policy. So this year, several experts within the State Department wanted to include Saudi Arabia to the list. And this is based on analysis conducted by a human rights group and news reports indicating that they are using child soldiers in their war in Yemen. So reportedly, these children are from Sudan. Seems like a good reason to include them on the list. I mean, it just seems like, hey, yeah, we should probably include them on the list. Well, this is where Secretary of State Mike Pompeo steps in, and he blocks the move. He blocks the inclusion of Saudi Arabia on this list. Pompeo has sided with some other State Department officials who said that this is really a question mark. We don't really know if they are being guided by the people in Sudan or from the Saudi-led coalition. So I guess it's just like up in the air. We don't know who's really responsible for these child soldiers. So we're not going to put Saudi Arabia, we're not going to penalize Saudi Arabia for actually using them when we don't know who's directing them.
Does it matter?
Does it matter?
Does it matter?
That's the question of the day for me. Does it matter?
If they're being used.
And their children.
They're being used in a particular conflict. That's all that matters. They're being used in a particular conflict to fight for a particular side or to fight on a particular side.
The Saudi-led side.
The Saudi-led side. So
it's not like Saudi Arabia is like, no, no, we can't use you. It doesn't seem to be the case here. It seems that Saudi Arabia is like, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll use them.
Like what Mike Pompeo is trying to present, right, is this case where these children just showed up. Hey, they just showed up. And, Saudi...
We didn't tell them to show up.
We didn't tell them to show up. And they just start fighting on behalf of the Saudi-led coalition. Mm-hmm. And the Saudi-led coalition has really no choice but to let these kids fight. We don't want to deny these kids the opportunity, to make a name for themselves. Right? Right? We just let them fight. We have no control over letting them fight.
No. Our hands are tied.
Hey. They just suited up.
Yeah.
They just suited up and start shooting.
Yep.
Literally, like a team. They just suited up. They suited up.
Yeah.
They got on the field. Mm-hmm. They started playing for our team, and we said nothing. They put on our uniform. They started playing with us on our side. But nah, they're not fighting. They're not fighting on our behalf. We have nothing to do. Hands off.
I guess they're like a group of bullies, and they do what they want to do. Saudi Arabia, they're like,
you talk about me. You talk about me being good press secretary replacement. That's some boss shit right there, y'all. They're the bullies.
They're the bullies.
These Saudi children, they're the bullies. They bullied their way.
They're bullied their way onto the battlefield.
It's not funny.
No, it's not. It's really
not funny, but it's funny how some like Pompeo, who is somebody who has intelligence, who we know has intelligence, who we know has the ability to use logic in this case, is purposely avoiding it.
Yes, purposely not putting the accountability on the soldiers on the shoulders of Saudi Arabia. And see, this is a bit of irony here too. So Sudan has been put on the list. Sudan has been put on the list because they were, I believe they were on the list before, but last year they were taken off of the list. This year, they're going to be put back on the list. So the Sudan children who are fighting in the Saudi-led war, well, that reflects negatively on Sudan,
but not Saudi Arabia.
But not Saudi Arabia.
That makes a whole lot of sense.
Could it be? I'm trying to come up with some reason as to why.
You're just trying to pull it together.
Yeah, like why? because it seems like, as we've been talking here, I haven't been thinking about this. As we've been talking,
Just now.
as we've been talking, I'm trying to reason why, like a United States official.
Do you need some time? You're trying to reason. Because it seems like you're just trying to pull this together, right now, because it's something that you really haven't thought about.
No, why would they do? It seems to me that they're trying to protect the interest of Saudi Arabia. So I'm like, why? Why would you do that? When it seems pretty clear that they're willingly using child soldiers.
So the question is, why would they?
Why would you run away from that, American official?
Away from that?
Yeah,
why would you run away from that? Was there something going on?
Are we connected to Saudi Arabia?
I'm trying to find some kind of connection, and I'm drawing a blank. I'm drawing a blank on the connection to Saudi Arabia.
Do we mix it up with Saudi Arabia at all or anything?
Did we ever offer?
Hold on.
Do we ever offer them assistance or aid in a particular conflict?
Now
do we
mention it.
do we have any like weapons deals with them?
See, because now I'm remembering that we're actually talking about Yemen.
Oh yeah,
we're talking about Yemen.
I almost forgot.
I kind of forgot about that. The United States has been active in this conflict. Have they not? The United States. United States have been active.
I recall like us talking about that a few times, but it just drifted away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I didn't put the
you didn't put
one into one.
You didn't put
into two.
You didn't put it together.
Nah,
you didn't put Pompeo's I guess positioning on this.
Right.
You did not you did not connect that.
Because Pompeo's a stand-up guy. You know what I'm saying?
See, now you see.
I went too
You
far.
taking my job.
I went too far.
Your resume is looking mad good right now for press secretary.
I went just a step too far. Clearly, this is protectionism. Clearly this is doing what they can to protect the interests of Saudi Arabia. We've been active in the Yemen war.
Trying to like
sales with Saudi Arabia,
and trying to artificially kind of manipulate how the United States is viewed in this situation.
Yeah.
Because if you accept that, right, then if he does take the obvious position here, then the next step would be, well, the United States is in violation of international law. I can't admit that.
That'd be kind of uncomfortable. So what we're gonna do here is just be like, oh, well, this is really obscure. We don't know. Is Saudi Arabia liable, or should they be responsible for these? I don't know.
That I don't know. That I don't know emoji, man.
Yeah.
That I don't know emoji comes into play now.
Okay, man. That's what we got. All right. Let's get to Marianne Williamson. All right. So we haven't talked about Marianne Williamson.
It's been a hot minute.
It's been a hot minute. Yeah. I mean, to actually go in depth about Marianne Williamson, but obviously Marianne Williamson is a Democratic candidate for president for 2020. She did qualify for the debate. She's going to be on the second night. The very unbalanced night, the heavy kind of debate, heavy-handed debate, I guess, if you're talking about the political candidates in that one compared to the first night. But she is going to be on that second night of debates. She was recently interviewed by CNN in two separate interviews. And in this first clip that we're going to show, she talks about Joe Biden and how he has changed his position on the Hyde Amendment. The Hyde Amendment, just for some reference, we talked about earlier, a few shows ago. The Hyde Amendment, it bars federal funds from being used for abortion services, and so that was put into place, no doubt, and I guess because the Roe v. Wade was enacted in 1973. And a few years later, the Hyde Amendment was enacted by Congress. So like I said, that was a result of that. It was some sort of I guess, negotiation between the two parties. But like I said, it's been, I guess it's, it's been continued since that time, since the 70s. So many Democratic candidates, actually, no, I didn't forget many, all of them. All of the Democratic candidates are against the Hyde Amendment and thinks it should be repealed, should be overturned, or it shouldn't be continued anymore. But Biden said that recently, he said, or his campaign said that he was still in agreement with the Hyde Amendment. And then after all of the pushback from Democratic candidates and others, he changed his position. So this is where this interview comes in on Biden and his change, his evolving on the issue.
Joe Biden has changed his view on the Hyde Amendment on abortion funding, with their no federal funding for abortions, with an exception for the life of the mother being endangered, incest, and rape. He's now saying he supports getting rid of the Hyde Amendment. This came after a lot of criticism from other candidates. What do you think of his change? Where are you on this issue?
I certainly think we should repeal the Hyde Amendment. Joe Biden changed his mind. To me, this is the politics that I'm not interested in, that we're all going to talk about what the big deal is. He changed his mind.
Is that genuine, to change your mind from Wednesday to Thursday?
Look, he's running for president. People came up to him and they said, you're really behind the times on this, Joe. You've already got a problem with women, all of that. And so he changed his mind. You know, I'm a candidate. I want to talk about what Marianne Williamson stands for. And if Joe Biden changed his mind, what that means to the voters will decide what that means to them.
Okay,
Now, y'all know how much we respect Marianne Williamson. You know, we talk about her in a way that illustrates how much we revere her, just as a person and as a political mind. Not just a political mind, she has a way of taking social issues, political issues, like a myriad of political issues and social, a lot of them, and then talking about them and kind of having all those issues converge into one conversation, not just talking points. Like, she's very good at that. I understand she doesn't want to get involved in this, like, he said, she said, like, a gotcha type politics.
Right.
And I will also point out, I do think the host could have maybe phrased the questions differently. It did seem like she was trying to create like this kind of duke it out kind of moment.
Definitely, and that's what they do.
But I think Marianne Williamson could have done what she always does. Still answer the question, but kind of like shape her answer in a way that kind of wouldn't cater to how the host asked the question, and not avoid that conversation, because that's not a conversation you can avoid. You know what I'm saying? And we've seen her break down, I guess, how this system operates and how the players in this system operate and the motive behind why they operate the way they do. We've seen her break all that down in a broad sense. So now when it comes to talking about a specific candidate and, you know, maybe the blind spots in that candidate and offering some sort of broad view as to why that blind spot existed in the first place, I think she dropped the ball. She could have gone about it in a way that wasn't an attack mode. She could have still done it in a way that points to Joe Biden still needing to grow on a certain issue and not just write it off as, oh, well, he changed and there should be no question about it. But Biden is how old?
76.
76. I think could be 77 at the end of this year.
Right.
At that age, do you think that just changing from one day to the next just makes logical sense? It doesn't really make logical sense. He should have known what kind of damage the Hyde Amendment was causing, and that's how I think her answer should have been surrounding that he was not cognizant enough, and he wasn't in touch enough to know that, like, to know how much damage the Hyde Amendment was causing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, she could have shaped it in a way to point out how Joe Biden did not have the foresight. Therefore, you know, maybe he's not too equipped to address certain issues. You know what I'm saying? Like, whatever those other issues are. Like, because he obviously didn't have the foresight in this case to understand that the Hyde Amendment was detrimental to certain groups of people. So that does point to his veracity, and that does point to his capacity as a leader. And I don't understand why Marianne Williamson decided to avoid that conversation.
I agree. I didn't think this was a good look for Marianne Williamson either. Mike is right. You know, when we've covered Marianne Williamson, we interviewed her as well. She's a very deep thinker. You know, she approaches many issues in a different type of way that you don't usually hear. You just, you know, it's I wouldn't say it's something new that you hear her ideas. It's just the way that she goes about and actually articulating her position. And, you know, that's something that we do appreciate. Now, with this, I understand that she doesn't want to get into the business of, you know, personal attacks. And that's really what it kind of seemed like. She just didn't want to go there with Biden. And that's, I guess that's where I have a problem, because I think for her, somebody like her in this campaign, you have to be about the business and differentiating yourself with a candidate like Biden, who is being framed as the front runner. If you're going to make noise in this race, you have to draw a distinction between yourself and the perceived front runners. So on this issue, the Hyde Amendment, I don't believe for 1 second she believes that Joe Biden's change, his sudden change, I don't believe for 1 second she believes that it was authentic. I know I don't. Now, if I'm on the stage, you know, if I'm on that, you know, in that seat with, I believe her name is Breonna Gaillard, and I'm, you know, that question is posed to me, you know, my automatic, very raw response would be, oh, the dude is fake as hell. Mm-hmm. That dude is fake as can be. Of course, this was not legitimate. It wasn't authentic. This was just political expediency, no doubt. Now, she's not going to say it in that way, but she does need to, I guess, project that message on anybody that's listening. Yes, he's fake. That's not real. That's not what we want in a candidate. We want somebody that leads, not follows because he got some backlash about some position that he's had for many years and that has continued until today, but he's running for president and everybody has a difference of opinion with him. And then he gives some written speech. He's just reading from a statement and he says that I can't support the Hyde Amendment anymore. It's fake as can be. And what she needed to do as a political candidate, as what is perceived to be her underdog status, is say that he's not real. Not in so many words, not in that way, but say that we don't need somebody like that. We need somebody authentic. And I am that authentic person. I mean, that's the way. Like I said, I don't agree with, I guess, her strategy here. And that's one of the arguments that we had with Bernie, even going back to 2016 and his matchup with Hillary Clinton. There were certain times where he could have punched much, much harder, and it was deserved. It wasn't personal. These were issues. These were conversations they were having about relevant issues, and he just failed to actually take it there and to really draw that distinction between who he is as a candidate and who Hillary Clinton was. If Marianne Williamson really has the aspirations to make noise in this race, she's going to have to go farther than what she did.
And, no, you're not talking about, like, responding in a way that makes her look catty or petty, like saying, like, oh, that was fake.
Yeah.
Or saying things like, boy, bye.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
Not like that.
You're not talking about that.
Nah.
You know, but there's a way she could have went about it that did, like you said, separate her from Joe Biden. And based on, like, how we've seen her engage certain topics, I think it's more disappointing. If it was somebody else, then we'd be like, Here it just seems as if she was inorganically trying to avoid it.
Yeah.
That's what it seemed like. If that's the strategy, that doesn't seem like something that someone like Marianne Williamson would do naturally.
Yeah.
And there was a little bit of pushback in the comment section, saying that she was indeed saying that Joe Biden was doing it for political expediency. I think it was, I don't know if it was Forsaken Campaign, I can't remember. Oh no, that was Mr. Dead. That's Mr. Dead in my pocket. She was asked. She was actually asked by the host, and she pretty much avoided the question. She was asked, like, blatantly, hey, was this done for political expediency? And she pretty much, like, dismissed the question. So she actually didn't say anything.
She just said, like, he changed, and this is a campaign, and, you know, he can change.
It actually...
protecting her. It sounded more like she was protecting her.
It sounded like protectionism. It sounded like, hey, people made us think about it, and people said, hey, you're behind the times. Get with the times, buddy. And then he made that change. He came to the call. And I was like, that's kind of how it sounded. And that's really not, to me, that's definitely not how it played out.
No. And, you know, I wonder, I do wonder how much of this is, I guess, in her campaign strategy. The question of, am I attacking these individuals? Or, like, are we going to be engaged in, like, a bitter contest? Because, you know, in 2016, there was this notion that Hillary Clinton was severely attacked. She was pummeled by Bernie Sanders. And, you know, when it got to the general election, you know, she was a weakened candidate because of Bernie Sanders. Now, I had, you know, like I said, we've talked about that before. Now, I had never really, I never really talked to anybody on the other side of that question until this weekend. I was up in North Carolina. I was talking to some family. And that was one of the questions posed to me. They asked me, you know, well, how do you feel about, you know, Biden? You know, and if, you know, if this race gets really competitive and, you know, all the negativity is brought up, you know, they're going to be a weakened candidate when they get to Trump. And my answer was really like, you know, we never really heard this back in the day. You know, we only heard this starting in 2016 when it was Bernie and Hillary. When it was 2008 and Barack Obama was facing Hillary Clinton, that was a bitter contest. But nobody was talking about, oh, you know, you can't be so, you know, aggressive because they're going to be weakened candidate, you know, going up against the Republican nominee. Nobody said that whatsoever. But think about the differences and I guess like what the focus was. In 2008 between Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, there wasn't really much talk about money in politics, Wall Street, speaking fees. There wasn't really much to talk about that at all because they were taking the same money from the same types of sources, corporate America. But in 2016, Bernie Sanders wasn't taking all that money. So you have the political elites, the political establishment, media. They're making all this noise saying that, oh no, you're doing too much here, Bernie. Like you can't go after her like that. That aggressively. You're weakening her. But the subject was corruption. The subject was money and politics. That's the only reason why it was framed in such a way, because Bernie wasn't taking the same type of money. The conversation was different than we had ever seen because money and politics never was on the big stage like that. It was never in the limelight. You had things like the Hillary Victory Fund. You had all this corrupt speaking fees and these transcripts that you wanted to see. That was never in the conversation. So now everybody's concerned about, hey, you're going to weaken these candidates when that used to never be on anybody's minds.
You know, it's even like, to me, more disingenuous. The fact that that argument is only used on behalf of certain candidates.
That's true.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what makes the argument more disingenuous. Not that it's kind of a new argument. It's just that it's only applied in one direction.
Yeah.
Why isn't it applied in a multi-directional way? Why would you just kind of create a rule like that for one or two candidates? Why wouldn't you create that rule for everyone?
What would be what's an unfair thing that's thrown at Bernie Sanders that we cover? Socialism, right?
Socialism. Oh, and stupid shit. He owns 3 houses.
Yeah.
And he's a millionaire now.
Does anybody say, oh, that's unfair? Do these same type of people that are saying, hey, you know, you're going to bang up these candidates,
Oh, you mean
are they
like,
saying that bringing up socialism and Bernie Sanders is unfair, and that's not what we should be doing?
Oh, you mean like the Washington Post publishing like 12 to 16 negative articles about Bernie in like 2 days?
Right. No, it was like 16 in 16 hours. You remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. 16 articles, negative articles in 16 hours, and that was
But
following
see, that's
the debate,
not seen as damaging him before he possibly wins the nomination. But that's how you know the argument is disingenuous, and it screams of this particular candidate is entitled to the nomination over these other candidates unconditionally. Because if people were actually genuine about that argument, about candidates damaging each other, it will be applied in a multi-directional way, where that rule has to be followed by everyone.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? It's
Across
like
the board.
It's like, hey, this one candidate is untouchable, and we don't care about the damaging any other candidate. That's what makes it disingenuous. And since this, it's kind of conversation tied into other things, because it kind of started with Marianne Williamson, and I know there's some people who disagree with us about her being a deep thinker, but maybe you just haven't heard her talk enough. She indicts the United States in general, not just the United States, but it's the effect the United States has had on the world. Foreign policy, domestic, everything. She indicts the United States, and she is very good at that. But see, I don't think you can indict a system, indict a whole country, indict a whole nation for, I guess, its policies and its history without actually pointing individuals out, without indicting the individuals that contribute to making this system like worse, or continuing to perpetuate the nation and the system.
You can't point in the air.
You can't
point
be
in the air.
ambiguous.
No.
Again, so it's going to come to a head where you can't just sit here and be like
who's promoting this?
Exactly.
Continuing.
Yeah, so you're going to have to get into it's you, Biden.
Right.
You're causing all the things that I'm talking about in a broad way.
Right. And you're going to have to be comfortable
You're
with
one
that.
of those people, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? She has to be comfortable with doing that.
And see, and what I was saying about the whole conversation about like I guess the aggressiveness, like in damaging candidates, more so we've talked about that on, I guess, on a higher level. Well, I guess on a higher level, on a bigger level, when you're talking about the media and you're talking about, politicians, political candidates even saying that. But I had never seen it extend to actual real people. You know what I'm saying? So like when I'm hearing even, my family talk about that, like, hey, what do you think? I mean, do you think this, should they be engaged in like the, should they be like dirtying each other up and stuff like that? Because I'm like, man, like that narrative is trickling down to just people, and people are having that conversation, and really they're questioning whether these candidates should really be, I guess, really framing themselves as different from other candidates. But that's the whole point of a campaign. If you can't, it's not just so much of like, here, this is what I'm about. You can't do that, especially when you're not viewed as the front runner. You can't do that. You always have to differentiate yourself with somebody that's above you. If you don't do that, you're not going anywhere. You have to say that my ideas are better than these people or this person for this reason.
You're applying for a job.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Why are you the best candidate?
You're applying for a job. Why are you the best candidate? And unfortunately, well, I don't want to say unfortunately or unfortunately. I think the reality is you have no choice but to match yourself up against these other candidates. But otherwise, what's the point? If you're saying I'm the best person for this job, by default, you are saying I'm better than those other people. So if you are already saying I'm better for this job, then you are by default saying I'm better than those people for these particular reasings.
That's it.
And
that's not unfair.
And you have to shed light on what those reasons are.
If anybody is offended by that or disagrees with that, then you're not in agreement with the political process, because that's what a campaign is. You have to say you're better than this person or these people. You have to draw the distinction, or you're probably not going to get anywhere. So you really, Marianne Williamson, she has to get comfortable, and these other candidates, they better get comfortable with, and I wouldn't say it's attacking, even though I guess you could say it's attacking, but it's not. There's a difference between attacking based on the issues and personal attacks. I'm not going to attack somebody. You know, we were talking about Shanahan earlier, you know, and the domestic violence. If this dude is in a campaign with me, you know, like, well, you know, we're running from the same office. If I bring up 9 years ago when he had a domestic violence situation with his wife, with his then wife, if I bring that up on the campaign trail or on the debate stage, like, that's dirty. That's dirty. You're doing way too much, because if we're talking about healthcare, if we're talking about foreign policy, if we're talking about taxes, and why am I bringing up your domestic situation with your then wife, which we don't know if you're guilty or not. You weren't arrested. She was, but we don't know what really happened. It was just the police showed up.
Yeah, how is that going to like impact you, I guess, serving the
exactly.
country?
It's not a relevant issue. Personal attacks, I think, should always be, that should not be a place where candidates go. I'm against that in totality. But if you're talking about the issues, if you stay on the issues, if you bring up how somebody is full of shit and you can prove it, you should bring that up, because I think it serves your campaign well.
And again, you're not saying that she has to say it like that.
No, you don't say it like that. I say it like that.
Biden full of shit. It's definitely not something she's going to say. You're not going to say it like that.
No, we will say it like that for her.
And she's very good at parsing her words, so we know she's highly capable of doing it.
Oh,
probably
no
better than we could.
Oh, I have no doubt.
That's what makes it worse to me, because it's her.
All right, so we have one more clip with her, and this is another interview she did on CNN around this same time period. It was very recent. And in this interview, or this portion of the interview, she talks about, I guess, what it would take to beat Trump. Because the question was, I guess, do you have what it takes, or, you know, what is it going to take to beat Trump? Are you somebody that could beat Trump? So this was her response.
People who think that what we need is somebody who's tough enough to beat Donald Trump are very naive about the nature of the opponent. Donald Trump has had a long career harnessing fear. I have had a long career inspiring love. What he has done is more than political strategy can counter. What he has done is he has gotten into a piece of the brain inside people, a piece of the psyche inside people, which is a primal power of fear. And the only thing that can override that is the primal power of love. I'm the one who's had a 35-year career harnessing the power of love. Everybody's aware of what he has done, but I'm the only candidate who has some awareness about how he has done it. And so I think that love is the only thing that can override what this man has done. Anybody who thinks that it's just political strategy and getting enough money and mobilizing, all the traditional things that we think, you know, what Democrats sometimes don't understand is that the part of the brain that rationally analyzes an issue is not the same part of the brain that decides who to vote for. So if you're just going to give the American people a rational argument, that's not going to defeat Donald Trump. What we need to do is to raise the conversation to greater inspiration, to a greater depth of understanding of what America means, what our history is, what started here in 1776, what has been bequeathed to us, how we have swerved from those things. That is what I've done. That is what I have a long career doing. Politicians have a long career at what goes on in Washington. I have a long career at what goes on inside people. And that's what sometimes the Washington establishment does not understand. That's why they make their mistakes so often in public policy, and that's why also they make big mistakes in not getting reelected, because they're tone deaf to what's going on inside people. And I have an experience there.
Oh, seems like she was trying to separate herself there. Did it not? Why she ain't keep that same energy when asked about Joe Biden? You see what I'm saying? She's like, I.
Exactly.
So why did she keep that secret? That's a good clip.
Yeah, it was.
She could have. I wish she would have kept that same energy when asked about Joe Biden.
I agree. But you see,
I wish she would have been less vague than calling it love.
Yeah.
I guess because I do see people making the I guess the comparison or juxtaposing fear and love, and she is right when it comes to talking about Trump in that way. Like, he's harnessed this fear, and that's how he galvanizes his support. which is not really that complicated. But like, I think it's going to be a lot more complicated, because when you're talking about love, like, that's a kind of a broad umbrella.
It is broad.
When, like, what is that covering though? Because that covers empathy and justice, and so that to me, that definitely connects to how people view themselves and where they see themselves fitting in this society, and that's definitely going to take a come to Jesus moment. You see what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Because that's what it's about. It's like how the reason why these people are, I guess, fearful, and their fears of being weaponized and manipulated is because of how they see themselves in the society, how they see themselves fitting into society, how they perceive themselves. So the fear is just not, I don't think it's just this primal thing that Donald Trump is pulling at, because fear is natural, but like, this is not natural.
Right.
Like how Trump was able to get support. That's not natural. Those people were already there, and it's not because of Trump. The reason why Trump was able to get the support of those people, and the reason why people can be manipulated by fear, is because of how they see themselves in this world, how they perceive themselves, like their identity. That's going to take some serious self-reflection and very painstaking change. Painstakingly, like, to me, it's just, I agree with what she said, but to me, it's just like, it's still bigger than this ambiguous concept of love.
Yeah,
we have to talk about how these people see themselves and why that fear was able to be harnessed. And it's not just about Trump; it is about them.
All right, so
it's about those people.
I agree with you too, and I agree with her. She speaks to, I guess, she speaks with aspiration. She sees the good in people. She sees that people can evolve, they can change. So that's why she talks about love and how love can counter hate. Love can counter fear. And look, I can understand why people would laugh at the notion. Point fun at it, ridicule her about it. And, I've already seen, some people doing that in the chat already, saying that, like, really? Love? Really? That's what it's going to take? But she's not wrong. It's just that I'm very cynical about the possibility of that happening. And I think that's where you were going as well. Like, that would take something monstrous. That would take something that we have never seen before. That would take a significant change, and not just a group of people. You would have to talk about the majority of people, not just in this nation either. You're talking about a global change, because how could anything just happen in this nation but it wouldn't translate to globally? You're talking about something changing inside people where they are actually interested in human advocacy. They're looking out for the best interests of human empathy, love, justice, all of this, fairness. And I agree that if you want to fight against the worst of us, then that's going to be that's going to be the instrument that you use. But to get to the place where Marianne Williamson is talking about, it's going to require so much change that we don't see it on the horizon. So, like I said, I agree with her. I don't fault her for saying it, because I wish other people would say it as well. So I wouldn't ridicule her. I would just say that I wish there were other people that viewed it the same way as Marianne Williamson. If other people did, if most people viewed it the way she viewed it, we'd be much better off.
One thing I think people are afraid to admit is that there are large groups of people who aren't in positions of power, right? And whatever positions of power you can think of, it doesn't matter. I think we are afraid to admit there are large groups of people that do not want to live in a world where people are treated equally.
Right.
There's a lot of people, regular folk.
Regular people.
Maybe somebody who lives across the street from you or next door. There are regular people who do not want to live in an egalitarian society.
Was that old woman or older woman that said that she would be okay with Trump being the dictator?
She'll be okay with Trump being a dictator.
Yeah.
We have
regular
to,
person.
We have to come to terms with that.
Yeah.
We have to come to terms with there's people who don't want to live in a world where they're not seen as superior to another group of people. I don't think it's just a matter of people always being influenced by demagogues. Demagogues don't help, or by rulers or by leaders. I think that there are some natural tendencies that people unite around. You see what I'm saying? And so I honestly, I don't think we can create, I don't think the world that has been created, like this current world that we live in right now, the current world that we always, kind of talk about and criticize and point to certain things in the world. I don't think a world like this can be created without the assistance of regular people.
Oh, it can't. Oh, it can't. We always talk about that, how regular people are the ones that are actually facilitating this world being exactly what it is. Without regular people doing the work of those that are in power without pay, without the benefits, without that aspect from being a reality, we wouldn't be talking about this.
I think in general, you see it like in your own life. There's people who draw some power from holding someone else down.
Yeah.
I see that from, I don't know, the manager at Chili's.
Oh, yes.
I see that from...
You get that little taste of power?
That little taste of power.
That doesn't really mean anything,
I think
but
it
means something to
them.
them.
It's easier to focus on, somebody like Rex Tillerson, who was the Secretary of State. It's easier to focus on the CEO and those people who make billions and billions of dollars a year. It's obvious, and it's easier to focus on them as if they have some sort of different way of thinking from the person that lives next door who abuses their power at their job at the convenience store. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Or they're I don't know, manager at Verizon. We don't see it like that, though. We only see it when it manifests in these high up places. And I think that there's natural human tendencies that have kind of shaped this world, and it's kind of like I don't know, maybe it acts as a mirror for our own problems. You know what I'm saying? I just can't see it that way. I just can't see it in the very conspiratorial, Illuminati, deep state, these all these bad, the CIA, FBI, MK Ultra, all these programs and all these people in high places, they're the problem. They're making everything, bad and shit. And I'm just like, it takes the responsibility totally away from regular folk who I see fucking shit up every day on their own.
Yep. And they do it with reckless abandon, and that's why I say, when I talk about the entertainment aspect of politics, this has been happening for a very long time before even, we could talk about the entertainment aspect of politics. It's just that I think that entertainment aspect just makes things so much worse, because when you include that into political discourse, we're not really talking about the issues. The issues really they fade away in the background. It's all about personality at that point. It's all about the fight. It's all about the war. Hey, how are they going to show up on the big stage, and how are they going to propel themselves to victory? And it's just, these are not sports. It's not that trivial. We're talking about actually impacting lives here. Let's treat this with the seriousness that it calls for. That's what that's what I hate about the political situation, and how I guess the carelessness is just magnified by the media, which treats this like it's some entertainment.
I ask people who tend to focus all of their attention way like upwards to like the royal family, you know, individuals that attend summits like, you know, like the trilateral, you know, like what's the conferences that people bring up, the one that just announced who's going to be attending. What's that big old conference?
Yeah, I don't know.
You know what I'm talking about?
But we could talk about
the Bilderberg group.
The Bilderberg, Davos, stuff
yeah,
like that.
Stuff like that. I think, like, but these people didn't just appear out of nowhere. They didn't just magically get created. You see what I'm saying? They didn't just materialize. They're human beings that actually grew up in a particular environment. So it's like, we kind of like put the cart before the horse here. We act as if these systems just came about magically and they just kind of wield their magical influence over the masses and they have everybody brainwashed. I personally don't believe that. I just think that in some cases, I think we as human beings want to be manipulated.
Oh yeah.
I think we want to be manipulated in some ways. I'm not saying that's like everybody. Yeah. I'm just saying there's people who actually want to be manipulated. I'll use one example of that. Candace Owens. I'll use one example of that. She posted something on Twitter and she cherry-picked Malcolm X's quote. And it was like 10 words out of like a speech with like 1,000 words, right? She cherry-picked that quote. Now, why would she cherry-pick that quote? Why would she lie to the people that follow her and are devout fans of her? Because they know consciously what she is there for. She is there to coddle them and to massage their consciousness and to make them kind of, I guess, expunge their own racism and then point the finger elsewhere. They know what they're there for. She knows what they're there for. They want to be manipulated by her. So it's not like Candace Owens is like she's fully responsible for these people being brainwashed. No, these people actually want to be manipulated because Candace Owens makes them feel good for their faults and who they are. Now, if we just look at it on a bigger scale, that happens every single day. And then who's responsible? I think there are people who actually want to be manipulated. I think they're just looking for we're just looking for this kind of global influence to give ourselves an excuse for being ignorant and being flawed as human beings. And I think that if we're talking about the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, the intelligence community, the deep state, or whatever, the royal families, all these things, this entire power apparatus, I think they just kind of take advantage of our ignorance and our own inability to grow ourselves. I think they just manipulate or weaponize areas of our consciousness that we don't want to develop. All they're doing is exploiting it. That's different than causing it. They don't do a service. I'm not saying that they do. I'm not saying they don't work every day to control people, but they couldn't do it if people were conscious.
But it's on automatic though, and that's what I've said that many times as well. That it's a high level functioning system that doesn't really need too many operators at this point. When you really take a step back and take an aerial view of the system that is right now, you have to appreciate it for its beauty. Now, it's messing with lives, no doubt. It's destroying lives. It's keeping people under a foot, no doubt. But it's beautiful because, like I said, the operational needs are very insignificant. They have regular people, and that's what we're talking about. They have regular people doing the job for them. You don't need to pay people to, and like you said, you talked about the whole conspiracy theorists and all these things that, are kind of, I guess are discussed, especially on social media, about these false flag events and how, the CIA and blah, blah, blah. And that doesn't mean that it never has happened in the past and it never has had, it doesn't happen currently. It will never happen again in the future. But to the extent that these certain people frame it as happening currently, it's so unnecessary because they wouldn't need to do it. They don't have to persuade anybody by like falsifying these events. like people already there. You know, like people already have difference of opinions on many different things. But if you're trying, like, think about, like, if the CIA was trying to say, let's see, we're gonna try to take people's guns away from, we're gonna try to take all the guns away in the country. So we're gonna institute this false flag operation where this massacre happens and a whole bunch of people die because of a gun. That'll do it. That makes no sense.
And see, again, like I see, Jay LeBlanc, you're saying exploiting the outrage that they in part caused. See, that's the question. Who is they? Like, I kind of posed that in the beginning, or whatever, when we started this conversation. I say, who is they? And where does it lead back every time? When you say they, you're talking about human beings. See, like, everything is so ambiguous, and you're talking about it like it's some sort of Skynet, and it's not. So no matter how you want to, like, add it up, it always comes full circle, and it always leads back to humans. So when you say they, you're talking about humans, and they did not materialize. They weren't grown in some sort of petri dish. These are humans. So again, you have humans controlling other humans. And it's, again, when you're being vague and you're looking at it on such a big stage, I think you'll see it that way. But if you look at it on a micro stage and just look at it from how individuals in your immediate environment react to things and act, you will see what I'm talking about. And you're talking about outrage. So you're saying outrage is somehow non-existent unless there is somebody manipulating that outrage up top? Or is outrage a trait that humans have in general? That's what I was talking about when I say exploit. And you're still making my point, because you're making it like outrage as a concept only happens because somebody in some authoritative place is making it happen, as if it's not some sort of intrinsic human trait. That's what I'm talking about. It boils down to human traits. That's all. That's why I say they're not helping. They're definitely working hard to manipulate it. They're definitely working hard to control countries, control people. That's not the question here. We're talking about more or less like, why are people so easily manipulated? And why have they been able to amass this power? When I say they, I mean fellow human beings. Again, we can't talk about this shit like it's the Matrix or like it's Skynet. And I think when Will talks about the entertainment value of politics, and specifically when we're talking about like electoral politics, debates, where this show started, that's one thing. But I'm also talking about entertainment value in regards to stuff like that too. Thinking of everything like some Terminator, Matrix, kind of dystopian world where everything is run by Skynet and everything is actually being promoted and perpetuated by human fucking beings. And until we understand that shit, then it's still, this shit is going to remain.
Like I said, man, that's why I always, like I said, I hate the system that is in place, but it is operated by regular ass humans. So I agree. Like I said, I just will repeat myself by saying that I do agree with Marianne Williamson. Her vision is what we do need in this country. How do we get there? How do you actually change minds, attitudes? Like, how do you change the character of beings that have cultivated these personality traits for very long times? And they have gotten to a place where they don't really give a shit about other people. They're not interested in justice. They're not interested in equality. They're not interested in fairness.
What are they? And what are these people?
These are called human beings.
Human beings. So yeah. I don't care what former intelligence agencies or intelligence officers or agents will make my jaw drop. It still doesn't address what we're trying to point out here. We're trying to say that these are human beings. That's it. Whether they divulge information about the job that they had and the work that they had to do, trying to infiltrate organizations, posing as proxies to overthrow governments, regardless, these are damn human beings doing it. That's the point. Like, we just acknowledge all that stuff happens. We're just saying that it's human beings doing it to other human beings. That's it.
That's what I said. It's always the system is on autopilot. It's being run by regular ass humans because there's way more of us, regular ass human beings, than of these like elite ghost these faceless individuals that are, holding the strings. And come on, man. Without regular people, they would not be able to do anything. So yeah, they could have an idea that, yeah, this is the exact system I want, where there's an extreme bottom class. Like these mothers are on the bottom, they can't do anything. Yeah, we want that system. We want to remain on the top. But do they really have to do anything? Do they have to go out of their way to sustain it? Do they have to do anything when regular people are doing it for them?
No, they don't. They don't. They don't. And to me, you know what? I may probably, probably ruffle a few feathers because it's something I've been thinking about for quite some time. And I think that to constantly always point to this uncontrollable group of people, right? They just have their fingers in everything, and they're controlling everything, and it's their fault. I wonder what kind of narrative that actually serves. Like, what narrative, who actually gets served? Like, if that is the overarching narrative, that there's only a few people and they're controlling everything and everyone is being manipulated. And it's like, who does that serve? Like, who does that serve at the end of the day? And to be honest, I think that actually serves the status quo. That actually serves the status quo because it takes responsibility away from actually people who are actually making these decisions. So who does that serve?
So if we don't have to change, I mean, it's not on us to do anything really. It's on these puppet masters. It's on these
it's just the puppet
few
masters. Elite
people. Like, but how do you change them? How do you get them out of the way? If they're the ones doing everything, how do you get them out of the way? It's like it's a fight that you absolutely cannot win because you cannot touch it whatsoever. How can you get your hands on them? Like, what is going to be your weapon in this fight? It's just words. It's just words, and on Twitter, Facebook, you're just railing against these, like I said, these faceless individuals. Sometimes they have faces. You can attribute some people to this class of people that are, I guess, making things happen or whatever. But again, what are you going to do to stop them?
Almost all of what y'all saying in the chat is completely true, but it doesn't answer the question. Y'all keep just saying these truisms, which I can't disagree with. Like, I'm surprised I have Claire Hodge, false consciousness. Yo, that's what's up. Mm-hmm. But guess who creates that false consciousness? Everything leads back to you. Everybody creates their own false consciousness, and they create a group false consciousness, which falls upon the individual and the groups that they form. We create our own false consciousness. All this world is kind of provides a mirror for what that false consciousness projects. That's all. You're saying a bunch of true shit.
Yeah.
That false consciousness is what created this shit. It didn't just start yesterday. It didn't materialize yesterday.
With Marianne Williamson too, like I said, I see the the poking at her and this and that. She wants to sell books, blah blah blah. How, that's all we need, love. We just need to love each other. That's bullshit. Blah blah blah. No, really, that's actually what we need. I mean, again, it's very broad, but without the actual aspect of caring for others, actually giving a shit about another human being, in the sense that you care about justice, equality. If you actually care about those things, that does take an aspect of love. That's in the conversation. If that was the reality, if that was the standard for human beings in this country, on this planet, then yes, we would have much better outcomes. The results would be better. People would be in better situations. Okay? We wouldn't she's talking about fighting fear, fighting a war that's waged on fear, right? It would be an easy fight to win if people weren't caught up with just greed and selfishness and actually putting the boot on somebody else, controlling others, seeking to, I guess, really interested in the demise of other people. If people weren't like that, if you could take out those character traits in people, then yeah, that's what she's talking about. Now, is it aspirational? No doubt. Is it far-fetched? No doubt. That's what we have to admit. That's what I will always admit. If I was talking to her right now, I'd be like, I'm a cynical mother. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know how likely that is, and if it is, my gosh, I don't see it anywhere. Like
But you
I
weren't just
agree.
writing it off.
No, I'm not right because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
understand where she's coming from, and I believe that's exactly where this human race needs to go. It's just a matter of like, how do we actually get there? That's the question. How do we actually get to where she's talking about?
I don't know who said it because it's probably too far up in the chat. But somebody, it made me laugh, but it's kind of true. They said, I know that Bernie loves me because he wants me to have health care. And I like it being framed that way because it actually gives kind of some credence to Marianne Williamson's approach. Because she is saying without that, you won't have individuals, whether it be in the form of leaders and presidents and the people that support them, you won't have support for policies that benefit society. If you don't have a certain mindset, you cannot, achieve an egalitarian society without people who have without people with an egalitarian mindset. You see what I'm saying? It can't happen.
Right.
It can't happen.
No.
So, I mean, I know whoever was in the chat using this love in a vague term, but yeah, you know people by like what they advocate for. But I don't know, man. I don't know, man. Like
It's a far-ranging conversation, man. But like I said, I can understand why this conversation and what Mary Williamson said. I can understand how those, there would be some that be like, that sounds dumb as shit. You're talking about humans, but that's
the point.
That's the point.
Like, how do you think we get this world? Like, what? Like, how do you think we got the world we have today?
Yeah.
We have a bunch of humans.
Yes, man.
Like a bunch of selfish, a bunch of greedy, self-centered, narcissistic human beings.
So you're gonna throw shade on her because she wants more? Like she wants us to be better than that? That doesn't make any sense, man. And maybe I would understand if that's the only damn thing she says. But she actually has policy positions.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's not just that she's like, oh, well, all we need to do is love each other and everything else will fall into place.
Yeah, she didn't say that.
Kumbaya. No, she doesn't say it at all. She actually talks about real issues and how to handle these real issues. But it's not just what I guess what she brings to the conversation that others aren't really talking about is internally inside humans. You know what I'm saying? Like the conversation about what's going on inside of all of us. That's the conversation that nobody really talks about. We talk about policy positions. We talk about how these policies are affecting lives negatively and where we need to go.
No more war.
Exactly.
No more this.
And we need to have those conversations, no doubt. But until we actually address the negativity in many of us and how many of us facilitate exactly the events that are going on right now.
And support them? Like there's people who support Trump right now, right? Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like if tomorrow, if everybody who still maintains their support for Trump, like hardened support, just all of them, and like Trump started polling at 1%, right? Like straight 1% stuff, and everybody who's supporting him says, "No, we don't like what you're doing in Venezuela. No, we don't like what you're doing with North Korea. We don't like what you are trying to do in Iran. We don't like what you're doing with Honduras, Ecuador, Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. We don't like what you're doing with the wall." If tomorrow all those people said, "Yeah, that's fucked up," what would Trump do? What would Trump do? So if we cannot have this conversation without talking about the consciousness of people, because we can talk about no more wars and unnecessary wars and the war on terror and the war on this, all the military bases that are across the planet. We can talk about Boeing. We can talk about, what's the other company? There's two main ones. Raytheon. Yeah. We can talk about all those. We can talk about all that. But damn, man, there sure is a lot of regular folk. There sure is a lot of regular folk that kind of are driven to fight for a system like that. And yes, I think there's a system in place that kind of drives them. Yeah. And it's an economic system that kind of steers them into fighting and joining the military being the only option, but that's still just a part of the problem. That's still just a part of the problem. But guess what? That's still a choice. There are people who are willing to fight too. There are actually people who are willing to fight. I think, again, that's one of those things we do when we try to explain something and it's not the whole story. I was like, yeah, I do think people are directed, like indirectly, to join the military because they feel that they don't have any other options. But then whoever was in the chat mentioning that false consciousness, I think that directs people to fight in the military too, and it's about a false sense of patriotism and nationalism too. I think that's where a lot of the want to join the military to serve your country and do all that stuff too. It's not just people just, I have to do it because I'm poor. I do think a lot of it is, patriotism, nationalism, that false consciousness. And if we don't address that, then
there's one there's one not an issue, but one situation that I've brought up more so recently, like a number of times recently, but we actually covered it way back in 2016, and that was the incident where the woman in the grocery store railing against the man that was using food stamps, right? Yeah. And again, this was shown on Fox News, and the Fox News, commentators, the pundits, they were laughing, joking, saying that the woman was absolutely right for being upset that there was a man using food stamps, government assistance, and the woman in the video was just like, I pay for that and this and that. You shouldn't be using that. You're a bum, stuff like that. This dude actually had a job working 40 hours. I mean, he had a job, but he had government assistance, right? And so that goes into this conversation about how regular people are fighting the battles for the damn elite, fighting the battles for this system rather than protecting the interests of our own regular people. No, you're fighting the battles for the people that don't need no damn assistance. You have so many corporations, so many industries that are being subsidized to the tunes of millions and billions of dollars, yet they don't receive any kind of negative criticism from people like that lady that was railing against this man because he was using some food stamps. Food stamps pales in comparison to the subsidies these large corporations are getting. It doesn't even appear in the same environment. I mean, it's nowhere near each other. But those subsidies are looked at as appropriate.
They're freeloaders.
Yeah, but they're not freeloaders. Those subsidies, no,
you pay into them.
Yeah, you pay. Yeah, they're not freeloaders. They're just doing business. They need that money. They need government assistance. But for regular people, no, you're a slouch. You're a bum. You don't need that. Get up, get on your feet, go to work. Stop being such a lazy bastard. Do you understand? Regular people are engaged in this fight, man. It's disgusting. And like I said, are they directed to do this? Again, maybe indirectly, maybe when they're watching their preferred news choice, Fox News, whatever.
But you just said it, preferred news choice.
Exactly. It is a choice that they are making. And they are able to distinguish that man using these food stamps from these large corporations using government assistance. They're able to distinguish the two, but this situation over here is okay. This dude, nope, bum. All right, man.
We've been rambling.
Yeah, we've been rambling on for about at least 30 minutes. That got into a larger conversation, as some of our analysis usually does. But we're gonna see if anybody has anything to say. We're gonna open this up for callers. If you would like to call in, we would love to hear from you. New callers, old callers. We would love to hear from you. It's 669-900-6833. Please call in. You have a question or comment. It can be related to what we have, talked about on this show today. Maybe about something else that we have not covered. But just something that's relevant to talk about. We talk sports, but don't call in about sports. We leave that to maybe the last few minutes.
That's a side conversation.
That's a side conversation. But like I said, but if you have anything relevant you'd like to ask us or make a comment about, we would welcome your voice on this program. All right.
Before we get into the calls, I want to highlight a super chat, and I want to kind of read this comment because I don't want to lose it. And that's from Maddie Perry. Appreciate that super chat contribution. And the comment reads, Warren has to watch out for Tulsi, especially when she signed Trump's bill to expand the military complex and also agreeing for war in Venezuela. That all depends on if Tulsi takes Will's advice. You see what I'm saying? That all depends. Like, is she going to bring that up? So it all depends on Tulsi, whether she will separate herself from Warren by bringing that up. And also the kind of the concept of a green military that Elizabeth Warren supports. You see what I'm saying? Like, she wants a military industrial complex that just runs more energy efficient. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe some electric tanks. Like all the military bases run on solar panels and windmills. Like, that's like, oh, thank you. Like a climate conscious military industrial complex that's still causing problems, like politically across the world. Yay! Like,
it's real. I don't think it's an issue for regular people to see people disagree on topics. I don't think that's something. If there's an issue being discussed, and I have one side and you have another, and I know you have another, even if, like, we're on a debate stage and you have stated another viewpoint and I have a different viewpoint, you should have no problem being like, nah, that's wrong. I don't agree with what she said because this is why would that be irregular? Why would that be like even confrontational? That's the whole point of a campaign. That's the whole point.
Sound pointed. You sound very pointed. Sound very pointed there.
Like, they really want these be nice and don't attack. That's not attacking. I don't think your vision for the country is what we need. I have to let these people, these voters, know why. All right, we're gonna go to the first caller. Oh no. You know what? I don't need to press that. All right, so the first caller went away.
It was
first caller went
away. Like it was a 124.
No, it was 248.
248.
The one doesn't matter. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
248 area code. But anyway, we lost that caller, so I guess we're still waiting for the first caller. But yeah, man, I just wish that I hope that we will see some of that activity on the stage. I really do hope that people are not discouraged from trying to separate themselves. If there's an issue, man, there's a lot of issues about Biden that I don't believe that are correct, and that Bernie disagrees with, and Marianne Williamson disagrees with, and Andrew Yang disagrees with. Hell, Kamala Harris, Kirsten Gillibrand. There's so many issues. If you don't display that, then you're really doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah, Snork brings up Warren taking tens of millions of dollars. I'm not sure if you're referring to the New York Times article or any other platform or media outlet that covered it. Her taking that trip to, maybe get some money from the financial sector. So I don't know if you're talking about that particular article or any other media platform that was covering that story about her seeking some donors from the financial sector, something kind of an area that's supposedly her wheelhouse. Keep holding those mugs in check, the Wall Street.
All right, so let's get to that first caller, 248 area code. Caller, you're on the air live with LTMB.
Hey, this is Jason from Detroit in the chat.
What's going on, man? How you doing?
This is your first time calling?
Yeah, I am, and I just wanted to say I'm really impressed from the show. I was looking for stuff to watch, and I found this thing called BreadTube, which is like this progressive outlet or whatever. And
What's it called again?
Really BreadTube. It's like a site. It's like BreadTube.tv, and it's like a site that's for progressives all over the internet, mostly on YouTube. But I found your channel on there. Somebody had posted you on there, or submitted your channel as one of the progressive channels, I think.
Oh man.
So
okay.
Yeah, I wanted to call about the Marianne Williamson thing. Marianne Williamson.
Right.
I don't think you're wrong. I think that the thing is she is trying to sell books. I mean, let's just be honest about that. She's trying. The name of her book is A Return to Love. I mean, her thing is like we need to love each other, etc. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you're trying to run for president of the United States, and you get basically no media coverage. They let you on CNN, and that's your pitch to apolitical people who don't know anything about politics. It's just, you sound silly to people who people don't want to hear about that shit, man. Like, people want to hear about like higher wages, healthcare. That's what you need to mention first. You don't go in there and say, oh, we just need to love each other, because then you sound like the hippie that they want to paint you as. And so, like, that's kind of all I wanted to say is, I just don't think you can say that. You could say like, people, we need to be more empathetic, but I mean, these are general criticisms. The stuff that I'm sorry, I forget the guy to the left of Mike. The stuff that Mike was saying is not wrong, but like when you were on CNN for not even 5 minutes, when you have 3 minutes on CNN and you need to give like an elevator pitch, to me, the elevator pitch is not, we need to like love each other more, which is true. And people tend to, like conservatives tend to not care too much about fairness as much as liberals, and like all these different moral dimensions. And that's important, and we need to like figure out how to address that over time. But I mean, right now, like, people need to be talking about healthcare, higher wages, infrastructure, criminal justice. That's all I want to hear from you. Like, if you're going to go on CNN, I don't want to hear about like that we need to love each other more. Because frankly, a lot of these people I hate, and I don't want to love them. I want to defeat them. But like, that's all I had to say about that.
Well, okay. Well, just to be fair to Marianne Williamson, that of course that's not all that she says. And you know, I clipped the interview. I mean, she in that last piece, she talked maybe with that particular. Panelist or that host for maybe about 8 minutes, something like that. And we have covered Marianne Williamson, several times. So some of the things that she says in this, when she does do these interviews, are things that we have already covered. So we don't really feel the need to like rehash them and show them on our show again, because like I said, it would just be repetitive. But right. I try to, when we see her in other, interviews and appearances, I try to get something that we haven't heard before, and maybe things that she hasn't said in a particular way. And that question about how do you defeat Donald Trump, I don't think I have heard that question being posed to her before. And so it did give us the opportunity to go into like her answer. And like I said, I agree with the aspiration of her answer. I agree with, that's where humans need to go. This human race needs to go if we really want to change things in the country and in the world. It's just a matter of like how feasible that is. But I don't fault her for actually talking about it. If that was, again, like I said, if that was the only thing that she was going to talk about, then yeah, she's doing herself a disservice. Yeah, she's just trying to sell books. But she goes into depth about what her actual platform is about. So, maybe, on this, I think that was the last question that she answered. She spoke about things, like I said, and I understand how people would really like be like, really love, really love. Right. That's where you're going, man.
Yeah, and I definitely see where you're coming from, because like that's kind of where my initial response was rooted. It was rooted in pessimism because of that.
Right. Because you know how humans are.
Because I know how humans are,
yeah.
And like what she's doing, she's trying to like establish some sort of foundation for why society has turned out that way. Mm-hmm. And that does definitely going to turn people off. That's why I was pessimistic for her to even bring that up, because it was just too vague. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was just too vague, and it's like, if she wants to get to the root and the foundation of why this society has turned out the way it has, that was just
you right in op-ed. You don't go
like, so I definitely see where you're coming from. That's why I started my response out that way. And like, although I kind of agreed kind of with the overall premise behind it, I just don't think people would latch on to it. And maybe she's overestimating how much effect will have on a certain population. The population that I say doesn't give a fuck about certain, you know what I'm saying, doesn't give a fuck about living in an egalitarian society.
It reminds me of Cory Booker, honestly.
What'd you say? Go ahead.
It kind of set me off. Because Cory Booker is just so vapid and empty, and his whole thing is, well, we just need to love each other, guys. I mean, ignore my elite background and the fact that I don't give a shit about you, but we just need to love each other. And it's just like shut the fuck up, man. Like, I don't want to hear you.
Yeah, and I can understand, but see, and I guess the difference between, I guess, Well, Cory Booker does it in a.
That was a good
very,
Cory Booker.
Yeah, it was a very good Cory Booker. Yeah, but Cory Booker, of course, it's viewed as him doing it in a disingenuous way because you can go into his past and it doesn't line up with him talking about, yeah, we need to be for each other and love each other and, you know, really take care of each other. We need to be humanitarian. It doesn't rub, he doesn't come off in the right way because it just sounds phony given his past. With Marianne Williamson, I don't take anything phony from her. It's, like I said, it's just about, like, can we? And in 2016, like with Bernie Sanders, his kind of approach to politics is something that he's been, it's been long-standing. It's been, ever since he's been in politics, many decades ago. Mm-hmm. But it really didn't come to the national conversation until he ran for president in 2015 into 2016. So the things that he was talking about, even Medicare for all, is not something that was really discussed on the national stage. And so that is like, you kind of compared it to love. Like, well, no, somebody in the chat said, yeah, I know Bernie Sanders loves me because he wants me to have health care.
Oh, yeah, that was me.
Yeah, that was you. Okay. So that was a good quote. So that's how I will kind of like extend it to Marianne Williamson because that didn't, he has a vision that he thinks is the right for the country without him talking about it, even though he got peppered for it, he got attacked for it. It was the right thing to do. And so I think it's the right thing to say for Marianne Williamson, even though I know that most people are not ready to follow her to that. But it's, nobody, like, we will never get there if somebody doesn't have the, I could say cojones, but if they don't have the will, if they don't have, whatever in them to actually go ahead and do it. Somebody has to be the first. Somebody has to lead.
I think that
would it have been better?
I think that what you said earlier was really relevant. Like, it's fine to say that, but if you want to say that, follow it up with, like, how do we change it? How do we get people to think differently? Like, we have, 60 plus million people that voted for Donald Trump, and those people most certainly hate minorities. I don't care what anybody tries to say about populism. If it was about populism, they could have voted for Bernie. So, like, what do you do about that? That's an interesting question. It is definitely about love and empathy, but I don't know that you want to go, like, as a presidential candidate, I don't know that you want to talk about that on when they finally give you 5 seconds to speak on CNN. I just wouldn't do it.
Okay, so you're talking about pretty much a strategy here. So you could definitely argue that might not be the best use of your time because how it will be perceived by most people. Like, it's like, okay, that's good. But
like you said, though, like, she's polling at, like, maybe 1%. She's not going to win. So, I mean, somebody does need to talk about it at the same time, though,
Yeah.
Yeah. And if that's going to be kind of what you frame your approach around, which is love, even though she did talk about other things in that interview, if she's going to wrap it up, like, I guess under that concept, right? Mm-hmm. The concept of love. Mm-hmm. Do you think it would have been better for her to then tie it to those policies immediately?
Much better.
Okay.
Much better. Like, we need to love each other, and that's why we need everybody to have health care. And that's why we need to address gun violence, etc.
So to your point, on the debate stage, that's what she better say. It can't be an answer like that because she's only going to have a minute, 30 seconds, a minute and a half. It's going to be short time frame. So if she doesn't pair it with her policies, then you better leave it alone.
Yeah, and I think that, honestly, a better role for her on the debate stage would be to attack people like, I'm not sure which night she's on, but like Joe Biden and like the Kamala Harrises of the world.
Yeah, she's on the same night.
Bernie Sanders is the front runner, and Elizabeth Warren is okay, but like we have a chance here to like change literally the world, and I just think it's kind of silly for people to pretend like these like 1% candidates have a shot. I mean, they might be progressive. Like, I like Tulsi Gabbard, don't get me wrong, but like it's about Bernie Sanders. Like, this is serious, people. Like, we need to get behind Bernie Sanders. Or Elizabeth Warren is okay, I can accept that, but honestly, Bernie Sanders is the choice all the way for me. I don't see any other option. It's not just about America; it's about the world. Also, the world would benefit from a Sanders presidency. The species would benefit.
I've been talking about this whole entertainment aspect of politics and stuff, and what really led me to talking about that was watching MSNBC earlier today, and there was a clip of them talking about the debate lineup and how Bernie Sanders And I can't remember the guy's name. He's a black guy, bald head, I believe, glasses. I don't know his name.
What network?
It's on MSNBC. He's a contributor. He's not a host or anything. I can't remember his name though. He was
Van
on
Jones?
with
No, that's CNN.
Oh wait, no, that's CNN.
who was the campaign manager for McCain, Palin, the woman. I can't remember her name.
Oh, Michael Steele.
No.
Oh no, he's the chairman of the RNC.
Yeah,
That's
chairman.
something different.
She wrote a book. She wasn't with Palin, but she's on MSNBC now.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
no.
they brought her on as
she's
like
a
the
Republican.
for balance.
Right.
Yeah.
But she's again. But anyway. But it was on her program. But this guy was saying that Bernie Sanders was really saved by this lineup because Elizabeth Warren is on the other night, and had it not been for that, Elizabeth Warren would have ended up finishing him off in this like first debate. And I'm sitting there like, oh goodness, man, like really, like first we haven't even gotten to the first debate. Bernie Sanders, when you're talking about actual contributors to campaigns, he leads the field. He leads the field. I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about actual bodies. He leads the field, and you're talking about that Elizabeth Warren would have finished him off in the first debate? Come on, what are you trying to do, man? You know?
Yeah, it's not even close. Bernie Sanders has over 1 million volunteers, and he outraised even the corporate Democrats in the first quarter. It's not close. He's the front runner.
Exactly. And what you're talking about with Warren trying to solicit like this corporate cash and stuff like that, there's a lot of that going on with, California and New York. They're running to these states really trying to get this money. But Bernie Sanders is like the lone person that's not really going about that business because they don't have to,
And the thing about Elizabeth Warren, she said that in the primary, she wouldn't do these like big dinners where it's like $2,700 a plate or whatever, or even more than that if it's going to a PAC versus like a direct donation.
Yeah.
But then she said, I'll do it in the general, which means that you have no problem taking money from Goldman Sachs, et cetera, in the general election, but you just don't want to look bad in the primary, which to me says that like you're not really principled about it.
Right.
And from the beginning, she was a Republican like in her 40s or some shit like that.
Yeah.
And like to me, you should have your moral dimension. You should know enough. You went to Harvard. You worked at Harvard. You know about these things. You know far more than I do about these things. So there's no excuse for you being a Republican as somebody who's twice my age. There's really no excuse for that.
Well, she had an excuse. It wasn't a good one. But...
She was apolitical. And I'm like, wow, that's even worse. So you were apolitical up into, you were well into your 40s?
They weren't involved.
She
said her and her family just weren't involved. But they were involved enough.
No. She said I was more concerned about policy. And I was like, that's politics. That's
involved.
That's the same word.
But again, she was involved enough to register as a Republican, though. But I wasn't involved.
Right. Exactly. Well, thanks for accepting my call, man. I really love the show.
We appreciate it, man. Yeah, man. It's been great having you on. We're glad you called in, man. We hope to hear from you soon, man.
All right. Take care.
All right. That was Jason. All right. We got another caller coming from the 703 area code. You're on the air live with LTMB.
Hey, what's going on, fellas? It's Court.
Court, man. What's going on, man?
Catching us with a different number,
man. We don't know what's going on.
No, man, what's going on? Different number showed up. Try to sneak up on us, man.
Nah. I had to use a different phone. My phone's acting a fool, so I had to.
Yeah. This your burner? This your burner, man?
Yeah. I don't know, man. You guys be having all kinds of technical issues, and we already think it's the CIA or something. So maybe I just watch out for myself. Maybe that's what I do.
Yeah, change it up a little.
You gotta change it up. True that, man.
Good idea, man.
So you guys had a lot of interesting points, especially at the end of the show where you went into, how people use amorphous terminology to describe the sources of problems in the world. And I really wanted to get into the Central American migrant situation because I feel like this never gets said, but we caused those people's problems.
Yeah.
We've been causing those people's problems since like the late 19th century. Starting with the Spanish Revolution and, on up, really until the present day with the drug war. You know, we use the drug war now as the pretext to go in and arm death squads and militias to basically oppress the population. And then when the violence becomes too much to bear, these people come over here in droves trying to escape and find some kind of opportunity. And they do well here, and they support our way of life. And the way Republicans treat them, and the way, you know, a lot of rural, Midwest, you know, Southern people treat minorities when it comes to, you know, any minority, it's just despicable. And yeah, they will shoot themselves in the foot. Trump's absolutely serious. He wants to round up millions of immigrants, and he wants to deport them immediately. He's absolutely serious. And if he could do it, he would do it. And the people that support Trump, they would all cheer for it. And they would say, oh, well, if they came here legally, there wouldn't be a problem, and they would be fine. When most of their parents and stuff came here illegally, they just did so maybe a century or two ago, and they were white.
Yeah. Melania came here on a genius visa or some shit.
I mean, you look at, like, a lot of these people love to use the Irish analogy. They love to use the Irish plight in America as like some kind of like warrant for their maliciousness towards minorities and immigrants. And a lot of Irish people were not wanted here, one, because, you know, people didn't like the temperament of the Irish, and then two, because they were escaping a famine. And they didn't want them coming over here taking up all the resources and eating up all the food. I mean, it's like you said, people are basically horrible, shitty creatures. Like, we don't give a shit about your particular country's problems, whether we cause them or not. If you bring your hungry ass over here and try to take food off my plate, then I'm going to make sure your life sucks. I'd say that's a plurality of people. I don't know if it's a majority, but I'd say it's a plurality.
It's enough.
Yeah, it's enough to matter. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that's the issue. And you're right, when you describe where these sources of these problems come from, you do have to get very specific. You have to talk about people who constantly antagonize anyone who hands money over to a homeless person on the street. I mean, I see that all the time. Oh, I hate it when I see it, and I call it out every time. People are like, oh, that person's running a scam. They're going to go get in their Maserati and drive away, and you're an idiot for giving them a couple bucks. I mean, think about what you just said. How would you feel if you were in that person's shoes and you needed a couple bucks? I don't give a shit if it is for heroin or liquor or scratch-offs. Don't care.
Yeah,
if the person's living on the street, you know what I mean, and you're in a position to help, you fucking help. There's no reason to sit there and berate other people for helping either. That's how they carry water for the elite. And the elite use that shit because they know a plurality of people basically are out for themselves. And maybe it's because that's the nature of survival. I don't know, fellas. I mean, I get that love is the answer and everything, but sometimes I wonder if the nature of reality is so hard that it is inevitable. Anything you do, whether good or bad, will end up in you getting royally screwed. It's just, I guess you can get royally screwed with, you know, with some dignity versus at each other's throats, cutting each other's necks.
Well, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's the deal. Maybe that's why they can use fear like that. You know, the way they use fear like that.
Like you point to a good a good example, and that is like people being overly judgmental about those little interactions we have, and maybe that's how. That's an outlet they use to activate their morality. They'll have some sort of problem with, well, that homeless man is going to just spend that money on cigarettes, or that homeless man, or maybe they're not even homeless. It's just a scam.
It's an out that they give themselves.
It's just like they're just going to buy some alcohol, or they're just going to buy this. So people will exercise their sense of morality in these little situations, even though this person is, you know, getting $1 or $2 here to spend it on some cigarettes. But this kind of, they don't exercise that same morality in situations that have more of a global impact. They don't care about the amount of money that is spent, like $30 million on a fighter jet or a drone that's going to kill innocent civilians. They don't become morally judgmental when it comes to situations like that. So I do think that maybe there's some things we fight over and some things we activate our sense of morality, some situations in which we enact our sense of morality because they're just so simple and easy to do. You know what I'm saying?
But you can take that conversation. I mean, look, they try to, I guess, rationalize that, like what you're saying, Corey. You come across a homeless person. I don't know. Some of you, you're trying to, there's a scam. You're just gonna buy some whatever, blah blah. No, I'm not gonna give any money to you. Fine, okay. You can rationalize it like that. But when it's let's say we have a larger conversation about healthcare in the United States. There's many people that need healthcare. They're not, we're not talking about people that are living on the street with their hand out. We're talking about people just like you, but they can't afford their healthcare. Are you for them getting healthcare in the country? No. And they find some other way to rationalize why you don't support that as well. There's so many people, like you said, you don't know if it's a majority, but there's a plurality of people that do not care about other people. And that's just the simple fact of it.
I also would like to add caveats and expound too, because, the same people who berate me for handing, a couple bucks to a homeless person, they'll talk about too how they help out someone they know, or they'll help me out. Like I've needed help before. I've needed like monetary help and things like that. They'll help me out. Don't even ask for me to pay it back because they know me and they're a friend of mine. And I wish we could look at people like that. I wish we could understand that 9 times out of 10, most people have the same goals. We may be selfish and we may be, self-centered, and we may only be motivated by our own interests. I mean, I think that's true for anybody on the planet. You can be the kindest person out there. At the end of the day, the only reason why you're kind is because it benefits you in some way. Maybe that's why humans did so well with civilizations, because we realized that if we treated the majority of the people around us with respect, it would benefit us in some way. But, it's the way that we can be manipulated to hate other people when we could actually utilize their help is astounding to me. And like, take race, for instance. I mean, there's a million different reasons, but take race. I mean, there is no real evidence to say that races make a different, like, species of human or something, right? Or there is no scientific evidence. Now, racist motherfuckers since the beginning of the racial divide, back in the beginning of the colonial period, have tried to, bring up shit, eugenics and, racial hygiene and all this stupid shit. And as science has progressed, we've come to realize that a black person, a white person, an Asian person, a Native American, we're all humans. But you can tell somebody that, because that person is brown, they aren't as good as you, and we're going to let you humiliate them at every chance you get, and then we'll bring violence against them so they do what we say, and we'll exploit them. And if they ever find a way to keep us from exploiting them, we'll try to kill all of them, and we'll make them look like assholes while we do it. And people cheer. They get like, you know what I mean? Like, they get so happy about that. They go out of their way. It gives me some hope now that I'm looking at a very different America, I think, though. I mean, like the America of the 60s where the youth was beginning to become conscious of the game, of the dupe, right? That was awesome. But now I kind of see where, like, America is really, really divided. Like, there's a lot of Americans that are like, this has been going on forever. It needs to stop. And then you've got the same characters and actors that go for the weak-minded and the self-centered. Well, we're all self-centered, but, the the maliciously self-centered. And it seems like there's less and less of them. I mean, maybe I'm off. Maybe I'm not paying attention to everything out there, because we are going through a right-wing revolution in a lot of governments around the world. I won't say most, but a lot of governments around the world are going to this turn right. Yeah. But there is a huge pushback. There's a huge pushback.
Yeah, I think that's something that's not highlighted a lot, especially because some of it is going on over here. If you're talking about like right-wing revolutions, then I'm pretty sure you have countries like Brazil in mind. You have countries like Turkey in mind, the Philippines. You know, so Poland
is really starting to worry me, because the White House, Trump, he was talking about letting Polish people come over with waiving visas. And I'm not against, people coming to the country, with visa waivers. And I think America should probably be the spearhead in allowing, people to come over with visa waivers. But see, it's the people that they're choosing. Like Poland is starting to gain a reputation as an extremely right-wing nationalistic, country now. Like they're really starting to go for the racial purity. That they just arrested a dude in Britain who called Prince, I think it's Harry. Is he the one who married? Her name begins with an M. What's her name?
Markle.
Yeah.
Yeah, he called him a race traitor and, put propaganda up there about him being, with a gun to his head with blood splattered in the background and stuff. And that's because, that dude's a racist. And these are the people that you want to give your visa waivers to. Because you can't help out Central Americans whose country you screwed over for damn near, more than a century.
Well, those are different types of people, though.
Yeah, and think about, like, the reasoning behind bringing people like that over or galvanizing people like that, because there's a shared interest. There's always going to be a shared interest.
It's the same reason that, like, going back to when I was talking about Irish immigration and stuff, it's the same reason why the Irish, went from being persona non grata to being accepted into the fold of whiteness in America, because they were told, listen, if you vote for us and keep the minorities from gaining any political power, then we're going to give you, the same status that we have. And you're right. I mean, that's what it is with Poland. I get that. But
I wonder, though, you were talking about I guess what's been going on across the globe in different, countries, governments, right-wing shift, this and that. But I guess you think that maybe a change is underway. I wonder. I do wonder. I will say that I'm of the mindset that I think the majority of people, at least in this nation, are more left than right. I think that's what I would. That's what I would think. I don't think they're more conservative than they are liberal. Now, what type of liberal? You can that's a conversation to have, but. There's one point that Mary Williamson said in that last clip. She said she was talking about, I guess, the mentality of people, like the part of the brain that rationally analyzes an issue, I guess, isn't the same thing that makes them decide which candidate they're going to support or not. So there's a lot of people that might see an issue one way, but does it lead them to the right candidate, And we know that there are a lot of. Go ahead.
People are like, it's like, that quote I said by Einstein, where, you take advantage of people who aren't as smart as you. If you're smart, that's what you do. And I think that's what our media does. Yeah. The average like American is liberal. Like even when Bernie Sanders went on Fox News and they tried to, trip him up with the question about, healthcare, and he knocked it out of the park, and, they all clapped. And, that, people understand what empathy is, and they understand what it means to live in a society and have to take care of each other and stuff, because it's a society and that's what you chose to do. But because a lot of people don't have the bandwidth, I'm not even saying intelligence. I'm saying bandwidth. You know what I mean? Like maybe they don't have the type of job where they can get off and vote, or maybe they don't have the family life where they can just, they could take a day like that. And because we won't make it a national holiday because we don't want certain people to vote, they never get a chance. And then, of course, you got people who have very low intelligence. They're just very low intelligence. And, yeah, they know that it's bad, and they know that, they could use some health care, but they were raised to think that all those other people out there are just trying to take what I got. And if I give them health care, then they're going to go ahead and take my wife. I mean, this is like the mentality of some of these people. And it's utterly stupid. It's completely asinine. If you sat down for 5 minutes and thought about it logically, you could never come to that conclusion. But this is how they were raised. This is what they know. It's like religion. It's like religion. Can you prove that God exists? And if you can't, then why would you live your life by that particular standard? Right? And no one ever has, but motherfuckers will go out and shoot you if you say some shit about God they don't like.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like that's been proven time and time again. It's asinine, and that's I think some of the problem too. People are liberal, but people are also dumb, and they can be easily manipulated.
There's a lot of people, of course, right now that are hating on Bernie Sanders and his bid for the White House, bid for the Democratic nomination, and it's not just coming from the right; it's coming from the left as well. And I remember there was this CNN panel some months prior in which they were talking about, many things. It was Democratic voters, and many of them, I think all of them voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. And there were several of them that were excited about Hillary Clinton. Now, like they were actually supportive of Hillary Clinton. It wasn't like, well, she's better than Trump, of course. No, they really liked Hillary Clinton. And they had some, I don't know. It wasn't so much like they had hate for Bernie Sanders or anything like that. I wouldn't go that far, but you could tell there was some angst in their voice and stuff like that. And so you see that social media, you see that, like I was talking about the MSNBC contributor talking about, he was about to be clobbered by Elizabeth Warren if she was on the debate stage with them. Like you see all of this like negativity, like these negative views about Bernie Sanders. But on this particular panel of Democratic voters who viewed Hillary Clinton so favorably and did not view Bernie Sanders in the same way, they were asked about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and what they viewed about her. And every single one of them loved her. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, damn, she says about the same damn things as Bernie Sanders. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, she's a product of Bernie Sanders.
She's like Bernie Sanders back when he started back in the 90s. That's what AOC is right now.
So if they love her, well, why do they have such negative viewpoints about Bernie Sanders then?
Regurgitated responses based on, media talking points that if you don't follow, your friends don't talk to you for. I mean, it's like, you still see the Bernie bro comments on Reddit and all this, and I'm like, listen, there were no such thing as Bernie bros. There were people who just were tired of this, dog eat dog, vicious politics that is run by corporate media, that's funded by corporate interests, which lobbies the government, and then everyone else gets fucked. You just, you're lucky if you have a good job. You're lucky if you have health care. That shit shouldn't be lucky. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like what other country do you know where motherfuckers are like, I shouldn't say that, because there are countries that are desperately poor and don't have universal health care. But it seems like the countries which have any amount of first world bona fides or any kind of a capitalist economy or whatever seem to have some kind of health care for their citizens. And they don't walk around talking about how lucky they are that they have it.
No. So they actually had to.
But we can clown people who talk about the guy who who brought this up the first time around. And then we can still bring up old bullshit of groups of people who didn't exist, to try and berate him. And then, the dude who said that Elizabeth Warren would, I don't, I'm partial to Elizabeth Warren because, I've seen her years ago and I thought she was very progressive then. And I know she's got a Republican past and all that. And I know she's got some corporate leanings and stuff like that. But I would vote for Elizabeth Warren in a second. You know what I mean? Like in a second. It wouldn't even matter to me. But that doesn't mean that I didn't see the potential in Bernie Sanders. And that doesn't mean that I don't want Bernie Sanders to win the presidency. And it doesn't mean that to the exclusion of everyone else, he should, like Bernie Sanders has put in his time. And if anybody is going to be the progressive candidate, it's going to be him.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Warren is right up there, but it's going to be him. And that the fact that they do that, they say that they say that about him is because they know it's true, and they don't want him to actually get where he should be, because then they'd have to answer for the corruption, and they'd have to pay back the money they stole.
It's ridiculous that they will actually have this analysis before the first debate, not even the year in the first primary, the first caucus. To say that Warren is close to knocking out Bernie Sanders this early, when we know in 2015 Bernie Sanders started from nothing really. He wasn't in the national conversation. He was nowhere in the polls as it relates to Hillary Clinton, but he got somewhere, obviously. He definitely got somewhere. He won many states. He got many delegates. So to think that it's so asinine and like that's what they treat this like this is some game. He's gonna get knocked. Come on, man. And I always said with like CNN and MSNBC, we all use them for sources. Anybody that does news, especially on YouTube, it has any kind of independent channel, you use these outlets for sources because, of course, we don't have the far reach that they have. But when it comes to analysis, when it comes to like their opinionated remarks, they can keep that. Yeah, they can keep those. Yeah.
Oh, every time I listen to the radio, and every time anything gets mentioned, and it's not just about Bernie, it's really about any progressive candidate. It's immediately turned into a joke. Like it's little chuckles and little little giggles and stuff, because they don't want Americans to take their own welfare seriously. Like especially when you look at why we keep shooting ourselves in the foot. Americans in a lot of ways, we deserve this kind of ridicule and this kind of this albatross around our neck in the form of Trump, because it's not just the racist son of bitches who get up there and cheer him because he talks about the people that they hate. It's also the people who claim to be liberal, and yet when they hear anything mentioned about socialized medicine, or they hear anything mentioned about free college education, they balk. They don't balk when you hear about $750 billion being given to the military. They don't balk when it's $1.5 trillion given to people who don't really fucking need it.
Right.
They don't balk. That's serious business. And they'll wring their hands and they'll furrow their brows and they'll be like, oh, wow, I really wish the world wasn't such a violent place and we didn't have to pay all this money to the military. Or, oh, man, I don't know if we should go through these tax cuts again. The last couple times we did this, we crashed our economy. But, rich people are going to leave if we don't give them their money. They're not going to be able to, we're not going to have all these little trinkets that these people roll out. Never mind that we have the most, influence in the world economy. And if we elected a person who knew anything about anything, we could leverage that. But unfortunately, we can't do anything. Our hands are tied. But fuck you on healthcare, though. It's bullshit. That's absolute bullshit.
Well, that's where we're going to leave it off, Court. As always, thank you for the conversation, man. You always add something to the conversation, man. And your viewpoints, the way you articulate yourself, man, it's It's a welcome addition to the show, man, always. So we appreciate you calling in.
Fellas, y'all have a good night.
Appreciate you,
All right,
Corey.
man. You do the same. All right, so
Something that Court brought up kind of early in his kind of call. He was talking about the increase of right-wing reactionaries, and how a lot of these nations are propping these right-wing reactionaries up, and we can see that in Trump. If we're talking about imperialistic nations and what they're rooted in and what their foundation is, it's social control, social hierarchies. And for the most part, leftists are the antithesis of that. So they would not go out of their way to support any kind of leftist ideologies, because true leftists are against like social hierarchies that place, I guess, a value in people or certain groups having power over other groups. So obviously, if you're going to continue, I guess, engaging the world in the same way as an imperialist nation, you're going to use, you're going to galvanize right-wing people because their ideology is rooted in the same thing, and that's social hierarchies and controlling other groups of people. You will never see a nation, a capitalist nation, or a nation rooted in, I guess, capitalism and social hierarchies and social domination and control. You'll never see nations like that cater to the left, or use the left in any kind of way to further its interest. They'll use the right wing because they're rooted in the same ideology. They have the same foundation. It makes sense. You would definitely kind of seek to, I wouldn't call it unite. I don't think they're uniting with these groups, but I do think there's some utility in using right-wing groups, considering that they have the same kind of mindset. They want to control other people. They have social hierarchies. That's exactly what capitalism is based in. That's exactly what this country is based in.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, man. Maybe that explains the right shift that we've been seeing.
Yeah, and that explains what I think even we pointed this out too, but Jason pointed it out in the first call. If they were really about populism, then they would have supported Bernie Sanders.
Both were considered populist candidates.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And obviously, even though Donald Trump didn't have any political career, it was easy to examine who he was throughout his life and look for evidence of his populism, and it wasn't there. So that wasn't the true reason. That wasn't the true reason. These people they don't want an egalitarian society, and who they choose to follow kind of shows that. And so all Donald Trump did was galvanize people who, I don't want to say are just like him.
They already existed as they were.
They existed as they were.
Yeah, and he fed on that. That's it. The way Donald Trump campaigned was a little bit different than what we usually see, no doubt. His style is different, no doubt. But like the actual meat behind all of that style is the same thing that we have always seen, or that we have been seeing. This right word, not just right, but will keep going right. It's all a part of the plan of the Republican Party. So he's not any different than them whatsoever. Again, he just had a different style to him, and he capitalized on that fear in a different way than what we have seen before.
He capitalized on, I guess, the ideologies that they are already rooted in.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
It's not like he changed people.
He didn't change people. And their ideology is rooted in social hierarchies. They already believed in social hierarchies, having themselves being at the top. So obviously Trump, somebody who comes in and appeals to that, he can motivate them and galvanize them. These demagogues and these strongman rulers will never be motivated by people on the left. Never. They will never receive motivations from people on the left, because true leftists are not promoting authoritarian type situations, authoritarian type societies.
Well, look, we got another presidential election in just, a year and a half or so. Actually, a little bit less than that. So this is the time to get it right, Bernie Sanders, he had a lot of support in 2016. And again, if you're talking about populism, I think, I don't think Donald Trump was not a populist. He sold himself like that, but he was not actually a populist. I just hope at this point there are enough people that have withdrew themselves from all of Trump's rhetoric, all of his bluster and flexing and lies as well. I just hope there are enough people that have done that. And I hope that, especially in the Democratic caucuses and primaries, that, the people that do vote democratically will really see where we need to go, like a lot of us did in 2016 as well, in Bernie Sanders. To say that he's not the front runner right now, and to put so much weight into some of these polls who are fishy, just to say the least, should be taken with a grain. Huge bags of salt. Actually, it's just what I can't wait for, and it's not the entertainment aspect. What I can't wait for is for Bernie Sanders' policies, his ideas, to actually be on the stage with somebody like Biden, who is being propelled and positioned as the front runner. What we need in this country. That's what I want. I want to see that matchup, because I know Joe Biden pales in comparison to somebody like Bernie Sanders. So that's what I want to see. I want the feedback from people as well. I want people, not the media. I want people to actually view these candidates on the stage, because you already got a sense of what Bernie Sanders was, more so what he was and is than a Joe Biden who was vice president, which how many of us actually heard from both Joe Biden in the 8 years he was vice president? How many he makes appearance, the vice president does some things, makes some appearances, gives some speeches, that does some things, occasionally shows up in the Senate, but largely they aren't anywhere to be found, and their voice is so non-existent. He's going to have to explain to everybody why he's the best choice. And I fail to see how he's going to make a compelling case on a debate stage and even going forward. How does Joe Biden, with all we know about him, how does he make a compelling case for why he's the best choice? At least Hillary Clinton, it was pretty much like 8 years of knowing she was probably going to be the Democratic nominee. So at least it was like that build up to it, to where people were like, okay, yeah, it's time for Hillary. And, not to say that her positions and her policies were great or anything like that, but at least there was some rationale for why people thought she was the best choice. She's the most experienced, she deserves it, blah, 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 it makes me puke, whatever. But still, at least there was that. With Joe Biden, what is there? I fail to even see how anybody is excited about Joe Biden. What is it? What can you get excited about? It can't be policy. He was the vice president in the last presidency. That's what you're excited about? Do you really think that he's even Barack Obama? What are you excited about? What do you think Joe Biden is gonna do? Like I said, I'm interested in the debate, so we have a couple, let me see that's next week, isn't it?
Next week.
That's next week we have it. So I'm interested in that. The first one is on a Wednesday, right? I believe, yeah, the 27th is on Wednesday, I believe, or is it? No, it's 26th and 27th, I think. So Wednesday is the first debate. Of course, we won't be recording that night, so, we'll be able to, see it and while not recording I don't know what times they are, because I don't think it'd probably be prudent to record while the debate is going on Thursday night. So we're gonna have to see what the schedule is, what time it is. And maybe we'll do like an abbreviated show on Thursday or something like that. But yeah, I'm like I said, I can't say I'm excited. I'm just very interested, and I do want to see the reaction. I want to see the reaction to this debate. Them all being on the stage, and how Joe Biden can actually sell himself. What is he going to do himself any favors at this debate? Can he do himself any favors at this debate? Can he? Because even if you look on that stage, hold on, let me look at this.
I'm trying to figure out what the plan is going to be for his campaign, because
damn it, even Klobuchar isn't even on the stage, man. I was like, well, maybe I was gonna say, well, maybe there's somebody else that's gonna be like a centrist like him. Hickenlooper, I guess. Yeah, Hickenlooper is a centrist, but no one would care about doing damn Hickenlooper. So
I'm wondering if they're going to, I guess, shoot him up with some sort of serum that allows him to be more articulate, because I just haven't been impressed. Even like beyond just him having trash takes. Like there was one take he had a couple of days ago. It just didn't even make any sense. Like he was talking about Bernie Sanders and he should just start a revolution. It was just dumb. But yeah, I mean, aside from his trash takes, I'm actually just worried about, well, I'm not worried. His coherency is an issue for me.
Well, it's not just for you.
Yeah.
It's not just,
you know what I'm saying? So it's not just his trash
people.
takes, it's like his coherency, and he just doesn't even look polished enough. Like, I think he is trying to, I guess, make his way through this campaign season and through his he's on the campaign trail trying to be Mr. Jovial, Mr. Nice Guy, Mr. Charming, because that's really all he has. You see what I'm saying? Because when he has to explain himself and make points, he trips up a lot. That's just from what I saw. So he has to play this role. He has to play that Uncle Joe role.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Like the silly guy. You see that every time he comes to an event, he's like,
I like Republicans.
He tries to be like really silly. Like he comes from behind the stage. He's like, here I am, kind of thing. I'm like, dude, like you're just overdoing it. And I think whether it's subconscious or not, he knows why he's doing that. I don't think it's completely conscious, but he has to do that because he just doesn't seem coherent enough to me.
And okay, think about it now. Think about it, man. When's the last time we saw Joe Biden in a debate? Who was he going up against? (2008). Who was he going up against?
Dang, I forgot.
So I remember, I can't remember the particulars about that debate, but I remember the perception, like, oh yeah, he performed very well. He was going up against Sarah Palin.
I think a tube of toothpaste would have gone. I think a tube of toothpaste would have fared well against Sarah Palin. There's a lot of things that would fare well.
I know. So it's one thing to fare well against her.
A frozen can of soup, frozen now, like
a frozen
soup sickle.
Yeah,
a soup sickle.
8 years. Well, no, not even 8 years later. We're talking. That was 2008. This is 2019 now. We're talking about 11 years later. Him going up against the Democratic field that includes Bernie Sanders on the same stage. Maybe he'll shock people, man. Maybe he will shock people.
L Train brought up something that we were joking about before the show, and he's talking about Mitch McConnell's position on reparations. We both saw the story.
Oh, please.
Like it popped up on my Google, and I was like,
I didn't even read it, man.
Like, no shit.
Exactly.
Like, what do you expect?
Why is that news?
Why
are you even
That's not
reporting
even
that?
news to me. I'm like, I didn't see all the other stuff he said about the reasons, about we had a black president, and then something about the Civil War. I was like, wow. But it doesn't surprise me.
Come on, man.
I'm like, look who we're talking about. I don't even know, like, first of all, I know he didn't bring it up. So I fault whoever brought him that damn question.
Why would you ask Mitch McConnell?
This is a person who held up a Supreme Court nomination. This person didn't even want to hold hearings.
No.
This is a person
that
who
was like,
is holding up bills right now.
Yeah, said that the only goal of the Republican Party is to make Obama a one-term president.
That's it. So why would anyone think raising that question would result in a different answer or a surprising answer?
This is
or
because
affirmative yes.
If that's if the conversation is reparations, right? That's the conversation, reparations. Okay, so you're talking about. I mean, you would have to go to places like, okay, is that fair? Is that needed? Is that deserved? That's where you would go, right? Does he support Medicare for all? Because that's what's needed and deserved, and that should be. Does he support? I don't know.
As far as basically what you're saying is like I guess supporting legislation and proposals that empower people.
Yes.
That's where you would start. You wouldn't just start with some kind of grand proposal or grand program of reparations. You would start small to see if he can work up to that.
You remember his speech on the floor of the Senate when I believe this was about HR 1, right? And talking about political corruption, and one of the issues was about making Election Day a national holiday, and this dude said that it was a power grab by the Democratic Party.
Not only did he say that, matter of fact, you just made me think of something else. The latest thing he said, I think I sent that to you about Puerto Rico. About I guess I forgot what the question was. Because he was asked about Puerto Rico. I forgot what network he was on. Yeah, the question was about Puerto Rican statehood.
Oh.
And he said, that's full socialism. I was like, what? How does giving Puerto Rico statehood have anything to do with socialism? I was like, why am I trying to rationalize this?
Like, how did the two even go together?
It's just basically socialism just now means I don't like it.
Yep. Anything I don't like.
I don't like it. I'm going to just throw that term out there for anything I don't like.
This is the man you asked a question about reparations.
Statehood for Puerto Rico, that's socialism. Blocking Supreme Court nominees, not for Medicare for all. Not introducing any bills in the city. So this is the person you're asking about that.
You remember the clip where he was on, was he with Hannity? Where he suggested that Biden was socialist?
Biden. No. He basically said, no. Well, Biden is included.
Yes.
I don't think he said the word Biden, but he basically said all the Democratic candidates.
Yes.
He said all of them.
Oh, God.
I was like, so that means Biden. I was like, man, this dude is on one. Seriously, dog. Wow.
Oh,
that just means that's just some sort of scare.
Yeah, it's just the boogeyman tactic, man. It's just,
you know what?
Fear mongering to the.
At first, I was kind of frustrated, but I'm like, you know what? Keep doing that. Keep doing that. Just keep doing it because you just weaken your argument.
Yeah. That's a character. That's a character, man.
Something else we talked about before the show is how Fox News released a poll.
Oh yeah,
showing how the top
a few polls actually. Well,
yeah,
I don't know if it was one poll or just different.
No. It was like 2 or 3 different polls.
Okay, all right.
And they featured how the top Democratic candidates would fare against Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And
Several of them.
Several of them. And it was like, I think Buttigieg, Warren, Biden, Harris, and Bernie. All were like 9, 10, 11 percentage points above Trump. Trump didn't like that too much. So, just like anything that Trump doesn't like, he kind of throws a certain terminology at it. And in this case, it's funny considering it's Fox, a network that's almost like a state-run network essentially.
Yeah.
Who they at every opportunity they spend everything for him as much as they can. Like other
he's
than
funded.
Yeah, it's like other than maybe like Shep Smith and what's his name, Wallace.
Chris Wallace.
Yeah, other than Shep Smith and Chris Wallace.
Yeah.
And maybe Napolitano every now and then, only with legal analysis.
That's
though.
it.
Only with legal
That's
analysis.
it.
I don't even want to include him.
True.
Like, other than them, it's a network that they don't waste a minute when they want to go to bat for him. But after these polls came out, Trump called Fox News fake news. I was like, did he just call Fox News fake news? It was like a label that's been reserved for CNN, MSNBC,
New York Times,
the failing New York Times,
Washington Post,
the failing Washington Post, the disaster, you know.
Oh goodness! Man.
When Fox News released those polls, he called Fox News fake news. That should, I mean, to anybody,
should tell you everything.
That should tell you everything you need to know about like
what fake news
what
means.
fake news means. Just I don't like it. And I was like, and it came from Fox News. And you know what's so funny? I honestly think they weren't doing that to, I don't know, like be truthful.
Yeah.
I honestly think they were trying to send your boy a message.
Yeah.
You were like, yeah. Well, we can't tell you directly because you'll throw a tantrum.
True. I don't think it was a jab.
But he still threw a tantrum.
Yeah, it wasn't a
I
jab.
don't think it was a jab.
No.
They were trying to send a message to Trump and his campaign, be like, yo, this is for real.
Because
like,
I believe with that news, when they were talking about it too, I believe actually we had a clip. We played a clip of that because that was with I don't remember the woman's name. She's the spokesperson of the RNC now. I can't remember her name.
Oh,
yes, that was that clip because she was on with Harris Faulkner, outnumbered, with Harris Faulkner. I can't remember her name, but it's the spokesperson of the RNC, and she had her on the show when she was revealing the graphics stating that Trump was behind all these different Democratic candidates in these polls. So even with that, I mean, they had somebody tied to the Trump administration on to directly attack these polls, and say like, oh, no, no, everything's good. They should be worried now, blah, blah. This ain't nothing. No, we good. So again, it wasn't like a move by Fox and where they were like poking fun at Trump or, trying to hit him for anything. These were just polls. These were just polls, man. But Trump thinks it's fake news. That's funny, man. Fake news, man. Which was not popularized before the Trump administration. I don't remember hearing it in 2016. I mean, at least for the majority of 2016. I think I remember hearing it towards the late part of 2016. But early 2016, 2015, never heard of that before. Not to the extent that it is right now. Never haven't heard of that.
That's the one. Oh, she compared Democratic candidates to Mussolini.
Yes. I don't remember her name.
Kaylee.
No. She resigned. She was the former spokesperson of the RNC because now she's with the Trump campaign. So it's the person that took her place, Kaylee McEnany or something like that. No,
McEnany.
Yeah, McEnany.
McEnany.
Yeah. It's the woman that took her place. Yeah.
Liz Harrington?
That's it.
Okay.
Elizabeth Harrington.
Liz Harrington.
There it is. Yeah. That's who it was. These Democratic candidates are like Mussolini. Oh boy, man. We gotta laugh, man. Gotta laugh sometimes, even when it's not funny, man.
Do you ever
find the humor in it.
Do you ever remember Obama calling in to CNN or MSNBC?
I can't.
And having long conversations with the host?
I can't. I really can't. If it happened,
that would be. I can't.
It must have been rare. It must have been, because I really don't remember it, man. George W. Bush. Do you remember George W. Bush doing the same thing? I don't.
He may have, but I just don't remember it.
But this sticks out.
This one sticks out.
Because this is not the first time, the second time, the third time. I mean, Trump does this.
Regularly. He watches Fox and calls in. He plays golf, and he tweets all damn day. And I'm following him and getting notifications just to see how much he tweets. I was like, let me actually see how much he tweets, because I don't really get to see it real time. It's always like afterwards.
Oh, yeah, hours later.
Hours later or whatever, and it's just when I'm reading articles about him. But this Joker tweets. I'm just like, ding-a-ling, ding-a-ling. I'm like, I was like, is this Joker tweeting 2 a.m. in the morning? I see a notification. I was like, who? This mug's tweeting 2 a.m. in the morning. I'm like, holy damn. This Joker's tweeting it like just, that's all he does.
Nah, yeah, I turn them damn notifications off, dog. Because people tweet far too much. Because if you're following like even 20 people,
you're
talking about news organizations,
they tweet every 5 minutes.
Yeah. Oh hell no, nah. I had to turn them things because I remember turning them on, and every damn 5 seconds, ding, ding, bang, bang, bang. No. Sorry, can't do it, man. But anyway, that's all we have for everybody tonight, man. We appreciate everybody that joined us for this show. Thank you to our callers, Court and Jason. Thank you for listening with us and calling in, giving us, just some things to talk about. We always appreciate people that join the conversation, and definitely appreciate people that are part of the conversation in the chat as well. But yeah, if you would like to get your voice out there or just ask a question, you don't have to stay long. You can ask a simple question and peace out. What do you think about this? Click. You don't have to like have this long dialogue. But if you maybe have a different way of seeing things, or just would like our take on something, or maybe just want to make a quick comment, feel free. Mike already addressed the super chat contributor, Maddie Perry, so appreciate that. Shout out to all of our Patreon contributors. Thank you. I don't usually say that. I say our patrons on patreon.com. Thank you very much for consistently contributing to this program. We appreciate it. That's all we got.
Guess I can give one last shout out to Kyle Khrushchev.
Well, you opened the show with Kyle.
Yeah, I'm saying I got to, man. Got to open and close with Kyle, man.
So you got to close it.
Got to close it, man. I just
I don't know if this is going to get to him.
I know. Just saying.
This is just
I got to do it. This is like, since he is, anti-gun regulation at all.
Yeah.
And he made that known. I just want to extend my thoughts and prayers to him. And tell him, to be best. Be best, man.
This much said be best.
Be best, man.
This dude said be best. That was a nice touch.
That
was a nice touch. That was a nice touch. I do have to say, that was a nice touch. Community college Kyle. That would be L Train, man. That would be a community college Kyle. Oh, yo, that's funny. That's funny. I wonder who's gonna take him. Man. I mean, he can't go to Harvard. Hey, somebody else might take him.
I'm pretty sure somebody.
I'm sure.
Everyone
that doesn't have the prestige.
Yeah, when like the smoke clears, he'll be down. He'll be all right.
Because it won't be news.
That's
anymore,
not really that's not really somebody I'm worried about. Really, you know what I'm saying?
Jason, Mike Will literally made it. All right, everybody. We will see everybody next time, Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Appreciate you joining us. Have a good night. Peace out.